look, I don't think there's any doubt that, Erick Fedde is definitely going to sit there and help that rotation. They were looking for a veteran starter. That was one of the goals that they had. And, one thing that about John Mozeliak is he's a targeted president and GM. He always looks for that one thing that he wants. He doesn't make a lot of moves, but he always fills that one need that he thinks the team has. So this deal really not a big surprise to me.
That was Jim Bowden on Foul Territory yesterday when describing what he thought of the Cardinals acquiring Erick Fedde and, by virtue of making the move, Tommy Pham as well. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Good to be back with the guys today. We're going to be focusing primarily on this move and the trade deadline from now until 2 o'clock. We will have David Kaplan of ESPN 1000 up in Chicago. He'll talk to us about Erick Fedde, what he saw from him with the White Sox, coming up in about 15 minutes or so. And at the 12 o'clock hour, Ethan Katz is the Chicago White Sox pitching coach. He will join us to talk about how Fedde went from bust with the Washington Nationals to KBO MVP, and then this year a guy that's had a sub-3.2 ERA. The White Sox pitching coach will join us in the 12 o'clock hour today. But, Alex, I want to answer the question on Erick Fedde that was asked by Eno Sarris in his post yesterday over on The Athletic. I think this is the best way to talk about this specific move. He said, by any metric, St. Louis has a below-average rotation. Erick Fedde will help them as they battle for a postseason berth, but if the Cardinals make it there, is Fedde a frontline option for them in October? He might help get them to the postseason. He might also have a lot more in common with the current back-end Cardinals starters than fans in St. Louis would like to hear, though. That came from Eno Sarris in his piece on The Athletic as to why he is both high on trading for Erick Fedde and low on what this means for the Cardinals' outlook in October. How do you view that? Is he somebody that gets you to October, or can he also help you get through October in your opinion?
He definitely helps you get to October. I think that's the best asset for Erick Fedde because he is a top 3 starter in this rotation. He's better than Miles Michaelis. He's better than Lance Lynn. And you can argue Andre Pallante, although Pallante's been great, but he's better than those guys for you. So, in my opinion, he does help you get to October because that solidifies your rotation. And in my opinion, I think you're looking at the second best rotation out of all of these National League wildcard teams as it stands now. When the Diamondbacks get healthy, obviously that changes things. But putting Fedde in that rotation solidifies, at least in my opinion, this team's chance to get to a postseason. Getting through October, I don't know if I buy that, but it's a much better option than what you had if you were hoping to get through October. And that's the important part because prior to this trade, getting through October was Michaelis, Gibson, and Gray. Now that Erick Fedde is involved with that, I think it gives you a better shot. I'm still not going to be investing my stock into the Cardinals getting through October just because of Erick Fedde.
That's where I stand on the Fedde acquisition is, does he help you potentially get to October? Yeah, I think there's a really good argument for that. To get through October, though, I just don't know if he has that kind of stuff and plays up that way. Because when I think of Erick Fedde, I don't think of a traditional 2. I think as a guy that's probably a 3 or a 4, along with Kyle Gibson. But he does give you a fighting chance. You no longer have to really squint and say, okay, so like once you get past Gibson in game 2, what are the Cardinals doing the rest of that playoff series? You no longer say that. You give yourself a chance. You clogged up what I would say was a need. Now it is filled, and now you at least give yourself a fighting chance to where, hey, Fedde could give you 5 quality innings in October, and then you just turn things over to your bullpen, which is also known as what October baseball has been for the last handful of seasons.
I'm going to give you a couple of pitchers. This is through their first 21 starts of the season, okay? This is just a direct comparison. 2 different pitchers. One pitcher, 121 innings. Do you want the ERA or the FIP or both?
Yeah, give me
Hit me with both.
3.4 ERA.
What's the WAR?
3.7 FIP. I don't have that handy. 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. 2.5 walks per 9 innings, okay? Here's the other pitcher. If it sounds familiar, it's because they are. 121 innings. If you're looking towards the ERA, it's 3.1. You look towards the FIP, 3.7. Look towards the strikeouts per 9, it's 8. Walks per 9, it's 2.5. Damn near identical. Like, basically the exact same numbers.
Can I guess who that was? Because option 2 was Fedde.
Give me one more second here. If you look at the stuff plus numbers, you're looking at the nerdy numbers that Eno Sarris is referencing, essentially, when he says, can Erick Fedde help you get to October? Sure. Does he have the stuff to get you through it, though? Probably not. T-Bone, what's your guess on who the other one is? Because, yes, you're correct. The second name that I just did there with the numbers was Erick Fedde. Who was the first?
I think the first one might have been Kyle Gibson.
No.
I thought it was Jose Quintana.
Nope.
Oh.
You're on the right path, though. It's Jordan Montgomery. It's Jordan Montgomery last year, by the way, when the Cardinals traded him to Texas. Jordan Montgomery was the number 2 starter for the Texas Rangers on what ended up becoming a World Series contending, World Series winning team. Now, I'm not telling you that Erick Fedde is going to be that guy for the Cardinals. I have no idea. But it wasn't that long ago that the Yankees determined Jordan Montgomery is not good enough to be a part of our rotation at all in the postseason. And so they wanted a center fielder. And in return, they sent Jordan Montgomery to the St. Louis Cardinals, who were like, yeah, this guy could start a game 3 for us. Then they said, you know what? We got Waino. He's got no legs. It's fine. We'll probably go that direction instead. They never got there. It wasn't important. And then the Texas Rangers saw what he did with the Cardinals and said, hey, we like that guy. We could have him as a part of our playoff rotation. Helps him win a World Series. I don't know what Erick Fedde's future is going to be. I have no idea what it looks like from here. Maybe this is the start of him becoming like a really solid middle of the rotation starter, which is what he is right now. Maybe this is a one-off. And the Cardinals traded for a guy that next year is going to be $7.5 million to be a number 4 or 5 starter, which, by the way, really good rate for a number 4 or 5 starter. That's less than what they're paying this year to Lance Lynn. My point is, can Erick Fedde be the guy that helps them get through October? Hell yeah, the same way that Jordan Montgomery did last year. They're very similar pitchers. Erick Fedde has completely changed his arsenal since coming back over from the KBO. This is a guy that can help you get to and through October. I think they've got other issues, though. I've got questions about the offense. I've got serious questions right now about the bullpen. They're showing signs of cracking, and last night I thought you saw the latest example of that with Chris Roycroft once again coming into a big situation, and then John King once again coming into a big situation recently. They need a or multiple relievers. But I love the Erick Fedde edition, dude. This might be one of the best John Mozeliak moves, if you're just looking purely at transactions, that I can remember in recent years. This is a hell of a move by Mo to get Fedde.
It no doubt is. I mean, you address 2 massive needs, and one being the pitching, which I have thought it's a necessity for a long time. And like we viewed it, you got to make the playoffs this year. You can't miss the playoffs for another year. And I think that was task number 1 for John Mozeliak in finding a way to solidify this roster to get you to October. And this gives you a shot to at least try and chase down the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the reasoning why I don't know if it really matters to get you through October, which pitching is always important. Yep. But I think there are 2 other more important areas once you get to October to have success. 1 is offense. 2 is your bullpen being lights out. In both of those areas, they're not elite anymore. Your bullpen was. Maybe you can still get it there. Your offense, I'm not sure it's going to get there for you. Those are the concerns. Fedde is just going to solidify one of the best pieces of your team this season, but it's not going to be the reason you get through October. The reason you get through October is your offense shows up, and that is a concern.
Yeah, I've mentioned this about the last couple of playoff teams for the Cardinals. They always went into October with a hole. Like, you could always find a hole on that team. If they can find a way to get a bullpen arm here today, I think you're looking at a team that I no longer worry about having a hole, because you're really seeing, to BK's point, the underbelly of the bullpen really show over the last handful of days, where you've seen Liberatore struggle, which he was just put in a tough situation. Chris Roycroft gets singled to death by balls that don't get past the mound. Like, they need to add some reinforcements there, and then I can say, okay, Erick Fedde's a guy that's never going to be favored probably in any of the starts that he makes when you get to October, but he gives you a fighting chance, and you can hopefully turn things over to a bullpen that has some weapons in it, and then you can really shorten some baseball games for the Cardinals.
Erick Fedde in those last 14 starts, 10 have gone at least 6 innings, 11 have gone 3 earned runs or fewer. Erick Fedde's a really good pitcher, man. For all of the questions about it, and it's reasonable to wonder, like, is this real? And we'll talk to his pitching coach to kind of find out what specifically he's changed coming up at the 12 o'clock hour. All reasonable questions to have about Erick Fedde. Dude's been awesome this year, man. He's been really freaking good. And if what he has done is legitimate and he becomes that guy for the Cardinals, I think we're going to look back on this deal very similarly, even if not more fondly than what we do with the Jordan Montgomery deal. That's Alex Ferrario. He's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you guys want to get involved via the mic drop feature, that's over on the 101 ESPN app. Curious your thoughts on the Erick Fedde deal, the financial implications of this, where the Cardinals are telling you, hey, it had to be cash neutral. The White Sox included money in this deal to pay down Fam's salary to make sure it is literally money in, money out for the Cardinals. So if you've got thoughts on that, if you got thoughts on Fam's return, whatever it is, we can get to those as we go along throughout the day today. We're going to be talking almost exclusively trade deadline for your St. Louis Cardinals. The YouTube chat off and running, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. And coming up next, if you're watching the YouTube chat, you'll see our conversation with David Kaplan. He's the host of Cap and J Hood on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Want to get his thoughts, the local perspective on Erick Fedde and what he's been this year for the White Sox. David Kaplan joins us next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by David Kaplan. He's the host up in ESPN 1000, in Chicago, and he joins us regularly here on the show. Always appreciate his time. Cap, how you doing today, my man?
Alex and BK, what's going on?
We're doing pretty well because Erick Fedde is now a St. Louis Cardinal. You got to see him up close in Chicago this year. Don't talk to me about what he did in Washington, Cap. I don't want to hear about it. He's been good this year for the White Sox. Tell us a little bit about what your experience was watching Erick Fedde this season.
He threw the ball really well. Now, look, less than a year ago, he was in Korea and nobody wanted him in the big leagues. So let's not think that Cy Young just got traded to the Cardinals. But look, when you can get Erick Fedde and Tommy Pham and only give up a guy who hasn't played in a year and a half in Tommy Edman, why would you not make that trade?
What was the reaction in Chicago to that return, Cap?
Oh, they're crushing Chris Getz here. Crushing him. That you got three prospects, depending on the ranking list, number 15, 16, and 23. One of them's got a stress reaction in his leg. He's out for the year with a broken tibia. And they're like, that's all you got? And you gave up Michael Kopech, Erick Fedde, who might have been your most marketable trade chip other than Garrett Crochet, and Tommy Pham. Again, Tommy Pham was sitting at home in April when the White Sox called him. So he has a 102 weighted runs created plus. He's okay. He's a good guy. Plays hard. He's okay. Erick Fedde, solid, not spectacular, solid. Michael Kopech, maybe the biggest disappointment of the entire White Sox rebuild, because the day that trade went down for Chris Sale, we got Peter Gammons on, and Peter Gammons said, he'll win multiple Cy Youngs with the White Sox. Multiple Cy Youngs? He can't even close here. Yeah, so that they didn't give up as much as people think, but they certainly didn't get a lot back.
I would imagine, Cap, that Chicago fans are probably hoping that Getz doesn't trade Garrett Crochet or Luis Robert after the return of what those guys got.
Well, what I was just told 5 minutes before you guys called is that Crochet will be gone by 5 o'clock today.
Wow. Whoa.
And that Robert will not be traded, that the return for what they want for him, there is no interest. They want a big package, and I get it. He's a really talented cat who, if healthy, could play at an MVP level and has done that in his career. But, again, he can't stay healthy. And this thing is so broken here. They are going to finish with the worst record in the history of the sport. The history of the sport now. We're not talking about, when my Cubs have a bad season and they win 67 or 72 or whatever. Yeah, they had a bad year. The Cardinals have had a couple bad years as of late. I'm talking about a team that is right now 27 and 82. 27 and 82. It takes your breath away how bad they are.
They've lost, 16 games in a row now, Cap? Is that right?
15. And
sorry.
Shame on me because I watch every pitch of every game, Cubs and Sox, to do my recaps on YouTube. So I'm watching the game last night. The Cubs have already put their impotent offense out there. They lose 7-1 to the Reds. Now I'm watching the White Sox, and they take a 5-2 lead going to the eighth. Royals are in Chicago. And a buddy of mine calls me and says, hey, man, the Royals are plus 950 right now to start the eighth inning. Let's each bet $100 on the Royals. I'm like, dude, come on. They can't blow another one like this. It's the Royals. It's not the 27 Yankees. He said, let's do it. I'm like, I'm going to pass. And of course, they get the first out. Now it goes to plus 1,100. And he calls me again. Dude, 5 outs to go. Let's do it. I'm like, nope, I'm out. Not doing it. He puts $20 on it. Now they go back-to-back home runs. It's 5-4. Now they get another out. Now you get a hit, a walk, a hit by pitch. Here comes Bobby Witt Jr. Deep into the guaranteed rate night. Grand slam, Royals win. And I was never so disappointed in my lack of guts.
Cap, I think the real question is between the Cubs and the White Sox, how do you stay so positive throughout the days?
That's
Chicago radio, notoriously positive from what I understand, Cap.
Look, I love the trade the Cubs just made to get Itzhak Paredes. I do. I think it's a really good move. He's an all-star third baseman. But, man, oh, man, dead last in the Central with a $227.6 million payroll before the Paredes trade. So now you're at $230 million, and that's what you're being given? If I was the owner, I would have a press conference at the end of the year and go, okay, Jed has 1 year left. We're going to let him have his year. But I'm holding every single person in this organization accountable. The nonsense you watch this year will not be tolerated. And if we don't get this thing turned around, and I mean not after breakfast, not tomorrow, to quote Shawshank, now, right now, I will make changes. Don't tempt me. Don't try me, because I will.
Cap, it feels like we're talking to David Kaplan, host of Cap and J Hood on ESPN at 1000 up in Chicago. He does the morning show up there, does a fantastic job. When I look at the Cubs and the Cardinals, that they feel very similar to me in that they're both kind of seemingly aiming for the middle, right? Like they're aiming to win 86, 88 games, like even down to the Dansby Swanson addition that the Cubs made last year. Swanson's a fine player. There's nothing wrong with him necessarily, but it was just like, okay, so in the last two classes of shortstops, this is the guy that you go out there who's really good defensively and has like one really great offensive season in his career. It feels like they are operating very similarly, and that would concern me if I'm a Cubs fan.
Yeah, it should concern you. Now, again, you could say, wait a minute, the Cubs are spending $230 million on their payroll, and the Cardinals are not even in shouting distance.
Yeah,
the Brewers, the Reds, the Pirates. They're $60 million. 60. And this is the team you're running out there? You're giving me a team that is in dead freaking last in a crappy NL Central. I don't get it. I just don't understand how it's tolerated. But that's ownership in this town. Ownership in this town, like, go find the quote, play it for your audience, of Joe Lacob, the owner of Golden State. We play it all the time on Draymond Green's podcast, where he said, our goal is simply one thing, to win championships. And I don't care what the rules are. I don't care what the luxury tax is. That's it. And I'm going to challenge my staff. We may not win every year, but we're going to die trying every single year. You never hear an owner in this town say that, ever. Or all this garbage play we've watched would never be tolerated.
Man. You are speaking to us right now.
Say, Cardinals fans are feeling a lot of that right now after payroll comments a couple of days ago. So, Cap, I know you love your Cardinals, but going back to Erick Fedde, how much of an improvement does that provide this Cardinals team?
It's an upgrade, certainly, because I didn't like a lot of the moves you made in the offseason. Now, again, in my opinion, I hope the St. Louis Cardinals never score another run in the history of their franchise, because the one team, the Packers are second, Notre Dame football's third. But like Secretariat to Belmont, I despise the St. Louis Cardinals. Respect that they're a well-run organization, but I don't think that they try and truly, with that great fan base down there, the Ballpark Village and everything else, they don't try to win. They don't try every year to push their chips in and go, we're bringing in a bunch of money, and guess what? We're going to try and win for these great Cardinal fans. I don't think they do it. I think that's embarrassing.
It's hard, Cap. They got to pay for all kinds of stuff nowadays.
Money.
You know, you got all this payroll stuff is getting crazy now in this league, and you've got coaches that you got to pay and all this technology. You know, it's really hard on the owners, and they'll make sure that you know that.
Yeah, and it's truly pathetic. And now the untold story is that the regional TV deals that are all blowing up, I completely get that there is not the pot of gold that they're used to. I get that. But you're telling me that the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago freaking Cubs and the White Sox in this market can't run out a better effort to try and win than what they're running out? That's nonsense to me. I don't believe it. And if they went to sell the St. Louis Cardinals today, how many billions would they get for that franchise?
All right, Cap, we'll get you out of here. I mentioned in the segment right before this where we were talking to you now, Jordan Montgomery, when he was traded last year at the deadline, almost identical numbers to what Erick Fedde has so far this year. You got to see what Jordan Montgomery was capable of in the postseason last year. Do you think Erick Fedde has that kind of postseason performance in him?
No. I think he's good. I think as I said earlier, I think he's a solid pitcher. I do. A solid pitcher. Do I think he's a guy that you're going to put in there and he's going to give you 7-8 innings of dominant baseball in the postseason. You're like, oh, my God, I can't believe what we're getting from Erick Fedde. No, but do I think he can go out the rest of the season and give you a really confident, solid start every fifth day? Yeah, I think he's capable of that. You're going to have to play defense behind him. He's not going to strike 12 guys out every game, but he's a solid teammate. Yeah, so it's a good addition, but again, it's a Cardinal Cub-like addition. They're not going out and going like Steve Cohen would. Hey, get me Max Scherzer in his prime. Hey, go get this one. George Steinbrenner would go, I want you to get me the very best available starter. It's a Cardinal-like pickup. All right, we gave up Tommy Edman, and we got a guy who was in Korea a year ago who's having a good year.
David Kaplan is the host of Cap and J Hood on ESPN 1000 in Chicago, does fantastic work up there, and we always appreciate him giving us a little bit of time here on BK and Ferrario. Cap, be good, man. Appreciate the time as always.
You're the best.
You guys have a great day. Go Cubs.
You got it. That's David Kaplan joining us here on 101 ESPN. Sincerely appreciate his time. There's really nobody better in the business.
I like the fire he plays with. You know, I like the fire that Cap plays with. I asked him how he stays so positive, and he says, I'm a positive guy. I identify with Cap, you know?
Yeah.
Positive guy, but you got to unleash the
Ferrario.
fire. You know, you got to unleash the fire.
One thing that I just, man, when you look at the way that the Cardinals and the Cubs are operating right now, and how they're both, again, I get it. They're paying $230 million for this team up in Chicago. Man, you could look at the roster coming into the season. That is not your traditional, I guess maybe $230 million doesn't get you what it once did, is the way that I would describe their roster. Because you don't look at that roster and say, like, the biggest superstar on the Cubs is who? Like, current superstar, not former, current superstar on the Cubs is who?
I could list three guys, but I don't even know if any of them are. I was thinking Hap, I was thinking Imanaga,
Showtime, right?
and Steele.
Imanaga's probably the best one.
I was thinking Imanaga.
This is his first season. He was 31 years old, and he was the second best international free agent starter available.
You said $230 million doesn't get you what you used to. Like, the Dodgers are spending also $234 million.
Really?
Yeah, I'm looking at their salaries right now. The Braves are spending $236.
Hey, you want to talk about the Cardinals spending money poorly?
Yeah.
Let me show you the Chicago Cubs.
There's a drop off. Teams that are in 200,000 plus are Toronto, Texas, Chicago, Dodgers, Braves, Phillies, Houston, Yankees, Mets. And then you get to less than 200, which is San Francisco, Boston, St. Louis, Arizona. So you could say $230 million doesn't get you what you used to, but, it does. You're just allocating it to the wrong players, like you asked about Dansby Swanson.
Exactly. Like, Swanson is that guy.
You're
Somebody
going
brings
low
up
level.
Cody Bellinger. Guys, Cody Bellinger is fine.
He's not a star since he was with the Dodgers.
Fine. His numbers this year are like, what Goldie has been for the last month is basically what Bellinger has been so far this year. Honestly, he's been pretty similar as a hitter to what you've had out of Mason Wynn. Like, he's mid-700s OPS, hits for a little bit of average, doesn't have really a whole lot of slugging percentage so far this year. He's kind of Mason Wynn at the plate, but doesn't give you the Mason Wynn Gold Glove caliber defense at shortstop. So that's Cody Bellinger for you. That's not a superstar in this league, not in 2024. Another thing that somebody brought up was, guys, it was very sobering to hear his take on Erick Fedde. It sounds like he was describing Kyle Gibson. T-Bone brought up that exact comparison before the show today, and I think it's pretty apt, honestly. I think Erick Fedde is a better version of Kyle Gibson. He's going to give you a bunch of innings. He's not going to strike out a ton, but he has better strikeout stuff than you would probably expect. He's probably a number 3 starter for a really good team. For you, he's a 2. But for an excellent baseball team, he's probably a 3. And if he was like on the Astros or the Rangers, he'd be like a 4. But an overqualified person for that spot, I think that's kind of who he is. A better version of Kyle Gibson is a good description of Erick Fedde.
Let's be honest. That's all that really was out there. That was all that was out there. Now, he did say Crochet's going to get traded. Congrats, Dodgers. I'm excited for you to have Garrett Crochet in your rotation. But
that was never available to the Cardinals because it's going to take a massive haul prospect-wise. It's also going to take potentially a contract extension or a willingness to put him in the bullpen. The Cardinals needed certainty, and he doesn't provide that.
What Erick Fedde is what the trade deadline was for starting pitchers, and you got the best of the bunch because
all you had to give up was Edman.
Yeah, because you say Kikuchi went for a lot. Eflin probably went for more than what you wanted, and the Cardinals weren't going to be able to afford $18 million next year. And you didn't get anybody from the Blue Jays that had control, nor did you get Nathan Eovaldi because they're not selling those guys. This was the best available, and you traded a dude who has not played in a year for the Cardinals. That's what you got. You can be upset about it all you want. Did I want Crochet? Absolutely, but it wasn't realistic. You got the best, and that's the most important
part. The guys
part.
that I had ranked ahead of Erick Fedde on my list from last week when we did our best available pitchers in the market. Nathan Eovaldi, not actually available. Max Scherzer, not actually available. Chris Bassett, not actually available. And then it was Yusei Kikuchi versus Erick Fedde. And if you told me what the returns were going to be for those respective players, like what ended up going for Kikuchi versus what they had to pay for Fedde, I would have had Fedde 100 times out of 100 as my preferred option in that scenario, especially once we learned about the money situation. The financials are a big part of this. You add it all up, I don't think that the Cardinals could have done any better in terms of their starting pitching acquisition. I also love getting Tommy Pham. It's an underrated aspect of this deal. He can play center field for you. He can play in the corner outfield. He can DH for you. He brings a presence inside of the clubhouse. He hits against left-handed pitching. It was a smart move. Now go do more. Now go do more.
Yeah, because you had to spend nothing on those guys. Now you got all your assets. Go get something better.
The other thing that I want to see them do is trade Dylan Carlson for a legit relief pitcher. And we'll talk about that opportunity next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals fell to the Rangers yesterday 6-3. They will be back in action tonight. 6:45 will be first pitches. Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. Max Scherzer will get the start for the Texas Rangers. And the Major League Baseball trade deadline is today, 5 o'clock. And we'll keep you updated throughout the day here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Mozeliak was asked about Dylan Carlson yesterday and said, quote, right now, he's still one of our outfielders. But clearly, we're going to have a roster crunch at some point.
That's like what he said about Tyler O'Neill.
So we'll use the next 24 hours to see what happens. But he's still a part of our organization right now, and we will see where that goes. I thought it was interesting. John Denton asks Dylan Carlson about what his current situation is here in St. Louis. He said, it's a hard question to answer because I just want to play. We know how this game works, and like I've said, this is all I know. For me, I just want to play, and I know what I've done to get here. He then went on to tell John Denton, listen, I've seen guys go elsewhere. I've seen that sometimes a fresh start can be a good thing. You look at Tyler O'Neill, look at Randy Arozarena, look at Adolis Garcia. He's seen outfielders from this team. Hell, Lane Thomas is a good example
Marcell Ozuna
for Dylan Carlson that have gone elsewhere, and whatever happened here, it's a fresh start, clean slate, good to go there. Alex, I think today is the last day that we're going to see Dylan Carlson on the Cardinals' 26-man roster. I think he's probably going to be dealt before today's trade deadline. And if not, honestly, I think he's going to get optioned, and then we probably won't see him the rest of the year, and he'll be traded in the offseason. Do you feel that way? Do you think we are watching the end of the Dylan Carlson era here in St. Louis?
I do. I think that's it for Dylan Carlson, and I think his downfall was that game against the Nationals, the misplay in right field, and at that point you could kind of see the writing on the wall for Dylan Carlson because the role was no longer the offense, it was defense, and defensively it was becoming a liability, whether it was that player in Pittsburgh, where he made the diving catch and it got away from him and they lost that game. It was becoming more of a liability and they couldn't even use him in the outfield. So I feel for Dylan Carlson because, I mean, he has obviously gone through it the last 3 years. I know Cardinals fans still believe he didn't really get his shot. He got his shot. Injuries took a toll on Dylan Carlson. Other players stepped up and performed over Dylan Carlson, and he never could gain that form. So I think it's important for Dylan Carlson to go get a second shot elsewhere. And if he goes on to have success and becomes an all-star elsewhere, I'm not going to get upset about it. Nor should I think Cardinals fans get upset about that because Dylan Carlson was never going to be the player here in St. Louis that he was that first year when he got Rookie of the Year votes, and that's okay. Sometimes that just happens to certain players.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think he's not going to be on the roster by the time we get to the 5 o'clock deadline today. I think you're going to see them just flip him and try and get him a new opportunity and maybe package some prospects around him to try and go get a bullpen arm. I think, to Alex's point, that play on Friday night against the Washington Nationals was the final straw, in which it was, okay, we can't trust him defensively out in right field. We already knew he couldn't really be a center fielder, but they've kind of had to put him out there as a platoon for Michael Ciani. When they started Ciani against the lefty, I believe it was on Sunday, that was the writing on the wall of, okay, the coaching staff doesn't trust him. They're going to go with 2 lefties out in the outfield and Newton right and Ciani in center field.
And remember the late game situation? I think it was the 7th inning tie ball game. Michael Ciani comes up to the plate against a left-handed pitcher. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's over.
The coaching staff just, they had lost all trust in him. And it was, okay, well, he's, and fairly so. I mean, defensively, he hasn't been as good this year. We always knew he wasn't a center fielder. You could kind of put him out there and get away with it. But this year, to me, his defense has really kind of taken a step back in the corners, and I think you've seen that. I mean, you saw that Friday, and that ball got away from him. There was actually 2 incidences Friday in which he should have gotten to the ball. And then offensively, like, look, we always knew he struggled against right-handed pitching. Even in his really good year, he was okay against right-handed pitching in 2021. Now he's not hitting lefties. Like, there's no role for Dylan Carlson on this team. You're better suited with Tommy Pham taking his roster spot and then trying to, rather than send him to AAA to work on things, just get him a change of scenery. Get him a change of scenery, send him out, and try and bring something back in that can help the major league club.
I also think he just clearly doesn't look like the same player as he once was. Like, physically. And set aside all the mental, emotional toll that has probably taken place for him, where he's gone through all these different kinds of struggles and he's been in and out of the lineup. Like, just physically, he doesn't look right. He doesn't look as athletic. He doesn't look as, like, quick twitchy to me, and that is showing up in some of the numbers. You look back to like his sprint speeds from early in his career. He was like 70th percentile in Major League Baseball. This year, he's exactly league average with his sprint speed. He's not the same guy. And I think this is probably the lesson to me of Dylan Carlson. It's super boring. Hey, sometimes injuries take their toll in a way that you don't anticipate, and a player doesn't become what they were going to because of injuries. He's had all kinds of injuries since that 2021 season, and I think that's the biggest reason why he never lived up to the potential here. I don't think it's about playing time. I don't think it's about how he was utilized or the way that the Cardinals treated him or their development with their pit. Forget all of that. In 2021, he played 150 games and was 15% above league average and finished third in Rookie of the Year voting. In 2022, he took a little bit of a step back, dealt with some injuries, but not a ton. And down the stretch, looked like he was maybe going to regain some form. You guys remember that as the deadline where they were in talks with Juan Soto. And I don't know why this still gets spewed as nonsense, but it is. People say, oh, they decided not to trade for Juan Soto because of Dylan Carlson. Not true. The Cardinals didn't have the pitcher that would match Mackenzie Gore in that deal to the Washington Nationals, which is what they wanted. And if it would have been done, it would have included something like Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, Mason Wynn, and Dylan Carlson, and probably one or two other pitching prospects. So if you don't like Mason Wynn as your everyday all-star caliber shortstop on a rookie level deal, sure, go ahead and make that deal. But Carlson was simply a part of the deal for Juan Soto, not the entirety of said deal. And over the last 2 years, man, this is not about playing time. This is not about opportunity. This is about injuries. He was hurt almost the entirety of last season, tried playing through an ankle injury, and it ended up being a problem for him. This year has not looked right. Injuries ended up being the thing that derailed his career here in St. Louis. And I hope he goes on elsewhere, gets healthy, gets himself right mentally, has an offseason to be able to gather himself and have a fresh start somewhere else and hopefully become the player that he expected to be here in St. Louis. I think it's possible. I think it's unlikely because I don't know that physically he's that same guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, opportunities present chances to turn things around. I mean, the one thing with Dylan Carlson that you could just tell just off of body language is he seems down. Like he doesn't seem like the same type of guy, which can be from the injuries and not playing an awful lot. It just is one of those things that he just doesn't have any value for the Cardinals right now. And I know some people think he does because he's still young. And I know our buddy John Denton still believes he's going to go on somewhere else to be a great player. But he's been outplayed defensively by guys like Michael Ciani and even Alec Burleson in the outfield and Brendan Donovan. Offensively, he's been outplayed by all three of those players. You're just at a point now where your pipeline is starting to come up to where it pushes guys like Dylan Carlson out of his role. And if you don't have an area of leverage for your playing time with the team, and the best thing for you is to try and continue your career and go somewhere else.
All right, since I'm giving Mo all of his kudos today, and people seem to be really loving it on the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line.
Makes sense. Somebody else wasn't here.
I do want to give Mo credit for one thing that I don't think he's probably going to get enough credit for. Over the past calendar year, I think he's done something that's extremely rare from a front office executive, so much so that it doesn't happen on the other side of town with Army. Army does a lot of things really, really well. I think he's a good executive, but this is one thing that I've criticized him for in recent years, including with the David Perron situation. He doesn't really go back to guys that he decided it's time for me to walk away from them, even if he should. I thought this offseason David Perron was the perfect type of player to fill a role that the Blues were missing. And in fact, they did kind of go out and get Matthew Joseph, who's younger, certainly, but fits a similar type of role to what they could have had David Perron play, and Perron would have helped him also on the power play. But set that aside for a second. They decided not to do that. What Mo's done over the last calendar year is say, you know what? Lance Lynn had his criticisms about some of the stuff and the way that things went down here in St. Louis. Maybe he was right. We need Lance Lynn. We need Lance Lynn more than Lance Lynn needs us. Let's go get him. And then at this year's deadline, dude, Tommy Pham was begging the Cardinals to sign him in spring training, begging them. The Cardinals told him, go away. We don't want you here anymore. Now, they got a decent return, but they were ready to be done with the Tommy Pham experience. And now they look inside of that clubhouse and say, you know what we could really use right now? Some Tommy Pham. We could use some of his demeanor. We could use exactly his type of skill set for this team. I think it's noteworthy that Mo was able to set aside his pride and said, you know what? We need Lance Lynn. We need Tommy Pham. These are two guys that I told to go away. And looking back, maybe we did need these guys more than I let on at the time. Maybe they do bring some stuff to the table inside of that clubhouse and on the field that I didn't value the way that I should have. And I'm going to give Mo a little bit of credit because it's hard to admit when you're wrong or when you make a potential mistake. He's admitting that with these two moves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him credit as well. Now, I will push back a little on it just because you're taking down my boy Army. But, I mean, he did go back to the well 2 separate times with Perron and brought him back via free agency when he traded him away and claimed him an expansion. But I understand you're still bitter about the Letty Perron thing, but
I think that everybody is.
I think you know what? Me too. I think Perron might be also, which is probably part of the reason why he's not here. You can't do the job that John Mozeliak has done, is doing, unless you put that ego aside. And that's the one knockback on Armstrong that I think a lot of people have had is like, hey, man, you can't be bigger than the team. And there have been moments where it's felt that way. John Mozeliak, I mean, look, they did just ship out Lance Lynn because they didn't like the attitude more than anything. Same can be said about Tommy Edman. They felt like he wasn't a Cardinal type of player. And I mean, to go back to that well, not only because they're available, but because you feel the necessity that they make your team better. That's the part that's impressive for John Mozeliak, to be able to say, like, hey, I may not like this, but they make my team better, and you bring them back. Now, had the chance to get Jack Flaherty, and you didn't want to do that. Yeah, do it again. I'll give him credit when you do that, because that's an improvement.
I'll be really impressed when I see Jack Flaherty walk through the door. That's when I'll really be impressed.
Sometimes ego doesn't get all the way out,
Herrera for Jack Flaherty and Andrew Chafin.
And
you ready?
Sorry, man. Mo doesn't like that, and he's just not. He's not
Jack
the type
makes
of guy.
too much money.
I'm gonna laugh if we trade.
That's true. Money in, money out. Lance Lynn for Jack Flaherty. Who says no?
I'm gonna laugh when Lynn's the one that gets traded today.
BK light bulb.
And Von Herrera for Flaherty and Chafin.
If that was the White Sox, I'd say it's a done deal.
And Carlson. You could include Carlson in this deal.
They
want a little bit more money.
They want 3 guys that are broken from the Cardinals.
Von Herrera's not broken.
Oh, well, the Cardinals think he is.
We'll just strengthen that arm, Tigers.
Cardinals think he is.
Coming up next,
Let's go get Jack.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. All right, boys, let's start out with this. Guys, Tommy Pham is the kind of player that teams acquire when they really want to contend. Do you think that he was the missing piece for this lineup, though?
No. What? Like, come on. Just like Erick Fedde is not Cy Young, like, let's not get over our skis and think that this is an MVP they're bringing in. You got a dude who gets pissed off. And one of my favorite quotes from Tommy Pham is every time he used to get walk-off hits in extra innings, the first thing in the clubhouse he says, man, the Cardinals don't pay me to play extra innings. And I'm like, this is amazing, Tommy. Thank you so much for this, because we're going home at 11 o'clock tonight. But no, I think this is a smart move because he's one of the better hitters that can hit lefties. Yes, he's been traded. What is this now? The fourth time he's been traded at a trade deadline, and he's had success on teams that have made it in the postseason. But
They've all been to Chaim Bloom. Chaim Bloom loves him some.
So you think Chaim Bloom made this trade?
I mean, he was there in Tampa when he traded for him. He was there in Boston
when he traded him,
when they were part of it, and now.
So you think that Fedde and Pham is the first Chaim Bloom trade of the Cardinals era?
Probably.
Nice. So this isn't even
I'm here to exclusively report that.
There's some tinfoil reporting, but I don't think this guy's going to make you a contender. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you acquired a bat that's going to help you against lefties, but he's not going to make a significant difference. They should start to see a little bit of an uptick in their offense against left-handed pitching. If you really want to see the offense improve, look at Paul Goldschmidt. Look at Nolan Arenado.
Yep.
Look at Nolan Gorman. Those guys got to start hitting if the offense is going to take that next step.
Those are the three.
Yeah.
Those are the three guys, because they're the three guys that provide the power, and that's really what's been lacking for this team. Goldie seems to be looking better lately. Yeah. I think he looks more like himself. The batted ball data has been there all year, but now you're starting to see some of the results follow. We'll see if it's real. I
still don't fall for these.
I've seen a 10-day stretch before where it's like, oh, Goldie's coming, and then it didn't end up working out any different than it was previously.
And then it was Goldie's hitting seventh.
Yeah. Hopefully this one's different. We'll see. From the 314, guys, if the Cardinals were to win the NL Central, do you think that would be considered a successful season? Okay. I think I've found what I believe is a successful season for the Cardinals. And this is meeting expectations, not exceeding them. But if they get here, it's like, okay, Cardinals probably did what they set out to do this season, and we'll see if they can now elevate upon that. You got to win a wild card series, and you got to get to the DS, and then hopefully be competitive in the DS. That to me is meeting expectations for this specific season. Cardinals fans, that is not me telling you that you should settle. That is not me telling you that anything other than a World Series is acceptable year in and year out for the Cardinals. I want to make that very clear. But for this season, coming off of the disastrous 2023, I believe that getting to the DS and being competitive in the DS would be meeting expectations for me.
T-Bone, my contact is torn, so I can't really tell. Is that John Mozeliak next to me co-hosting the show, or?
I don't think that is
sounded like a Mo tie.
I don't think that is.
No, I'm with you. I think the only way that I would look at this as great job Cardinals would be if you win the wild card round, because that's progress. Because the last 2 times you've been in the postseason, it's been out after a wild card. And not just out after a wild card, haven't even really looked competitive in the wild card. And I know it was one game against the Dodgers, but it's still, you haven't found a way to be competitive. And if you can win a wild card round and be competitive in the NLDS and not look like the 2019 Cardinals in the NLCS, I'll look at that as a successful season and hope that you're building something better for the next year.
Hopefully that's the jumping off point, right?
Because if you go backwards, that's a problem.
Exactly. And right now, what you're trying to do is get this upward trajectory. If you're looking honestly at this team, I was thinking about doing this maybe for the show tomorrow. If we looked back at that wild card game in 2022 and look at how many of those players are going to be on the roster for game 1 of 2025, dude, it's like a whole different team. They've essentially gone through a retool without calling it a retool, because they've done the hey, we're going to kind of hopefully bridge the gap with our rotation the way that the way that the Blues are doing right now with their bottom 6, and they've turned things over to the young guys with the positional player core. Yeah, and then Goldie's probably going to be gone this offseason as well.
5 guys. I'm looking at the roster right now. So your catcher is now Contreras. At the time it was Kisner. Goldschmidt first base, Gorman second base. Tommy Edman was your shortstop. Now Mason Wynn, Nolan Arenado, Tyler O'Neill in left field. Now Brendan Donovan in left field. Center field, Harrison Bader, Michael Ciani. Right field, Lars Nootbaar. DH, Albert Pujols. And on your bench, it was Molina, DeYoung, Yepez, Dickerson, Donovan, and Carlson.
So Donovan was five guys from that roster. Mm-hmm. They've replaced
and Burleson, but he didn't play. Remember, because they put him on the roster and he didn't do anything.
And like the entire pitching staff has been overhauled, other than Helsley, basically.
Yeah, the pitching staff is Michaelis, and that's it. Michaelis, Waino, Hudson, Montgomery, Quintana. And your bullpen is Helsley, and that's it. It was Helsley, Pallante, Hicks, Gallegos, Cabrera. Yeah, they did.
They retooled this roster on the fly, and you can decide whether or not you think that it's worked.
And we gave the retool for the Blues a 3-year window. Yeah. Year 3 would be next year.
This year, get to the playoffs. Next year, capitalize on it by taking that a step further. That's kind of the way that I view this.
But they don't have money, man.
I know. That's the hard
money
part.
in, money out.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Speaking of that money, what did the trade for Erick Fedde and Tommy Pham tell us about how the Cardinals view their current financial future? And what does it mean for this offseason to, get better in the future? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. All right, so we got some breaking news. The Cardinals have made a roster move, according to Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She joins us each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario as well. Alex, they are calling up Michael McGreevy. Michael McGreevy is going to be a part of the big league roster, and he will be a part of the big league rotation. According to Katie Wu, Michael McGreevy will spot start tomorrow against the Texas Rangers. Quote, with the team playing 16 games, the organization would like to work in extra rest for the rotation. They will go with a 6-man rotation one time through. And if my math is correct, and it's super elementary math, so I think that it is, this means that my guess is Pallante will be sent down to the minors in return for, as the corresponding move for McGreevy. Now that, as far as I can tell, T-Bone, tell me if I haven't seen this somewhere else. I've not seen that announced anywhere. But the 6-man rotation, if you're going to that and McGreevy is a part of it, you would need another spot. You would need 7 to include Andre Pallante once you get Erick Fedde in there.
Unless, but now that he pitched yesterday, it doesn't make sense unless you pushed him to the pen for length. But I don't know why you can't do that because he just pitched. Liberatore will be the guy that will probably
And if you send him down, that means you cannot bring him back up for 15 days. So the next time you could call up, barring, I think, an injury, if you got an IL stint, you could potentially change that. But barring an IL stint, the next time that you could bring up Andre Pallante would be August 16th against the Dodgers. So you'd have to go basically the 16 games and 16 days stretch that they're in right now. They'd have to do all of that without Andre Pallante in the bullpen. Guys, what do you think? What do you think about them calling up Michael McGreevy right now? It does push back. I find this part to be interesting. Sonny Gray's start specifically. He was scheduled to start tomorrow. That is no longer the case. I'm guessing internally they knew that they were going to do this. Otherwise, I don't love, once again, them pushing back a start for Sonny Gray from one team to the next and having to completely alter his pregame prep. So my guess is they knew this internally for a while, and we are just now coming to learn what their plan is here. What do you think of it, Alex?
I mean, I'm glad that they were starting to see the Cardinals try and figure out what some of these pitchers are in their minors, and it's not just the same guys or they're going a bullpen game. I mean, essentially kind of going to be a bullpen game, but you're bringing up a starter to figure out who it is. I don't like the idea of putting Pallante down in the minors. I think Pallante has shown the necessity to stay in your rotation for how good he has been. Even last night, I know he got into jams, but he still was a very competitive starting pitcher for you, more so than a couple of guys in your rotation. So I'm glad we're trying to figure out what some of these guys are. I don't like Pallante going down. I really don't like this whole keep pushing Sonny Gray back situation to keep getting him rest. They have babied this guy as much as possible this season, and I understand some of this, after talking with a couple of people around the Cardinals, some of this is just Sonny Gray. He knows who he needs to be, and he knows how to handle himself so he can stay the type of guy that he is, and like this is what a lot of great pitchers do. The problem is Sonny Gray has not been great these last 5 starts. These last 5 starts have been a problem for him. Something is wrong, and now we're pushing him back so he can figure things out. And like BK said, you're messing up the prep. You're going to a 6-man rotation. I don't have the warm and fuzzies about Sonny Gray right now.
Let me give you a stat real quick. How many times do you think Sonny Gray has started on 4 days rest this year? Which is the typical, like, traditional 5-man rotation, playing 162, like the grind of the year.
Great pitchers do where they take the ball.
The actual number ones.
Every 5th day, the old saying, like, that is
My
4 days rest. That is the traditional way
it's a BK game, so I think he's trying to prove us wrong, so I want to say it's a lot.
I mean, I don't think
he's had
done
19 starts so far this year, just to throw that out there.
Okay, I'll
15.
go. He's done it. It's either high or low. I'm going to go low 5 times.
3.
Saying,
Yeah, I knew it'd be low.
He's made
now,
3 starts this year on traditional rest.
Part of that, and this is why, like, I hate when the Cardinals are like 16 games in 16 days, because they get so many freaking off days now. It's a lot easier to kind of handle these pitchers a little bit easier this way.
Quote unquote honor the off days, the way that they describe it, right? I found that interesting because that is the way that they have handled him in the past. Like when you look at what he was last year in Minnesota, 21 of his 32 starts. 23 actually of his 32 starts came with 5+ days of rest between them. If you go back a couple of years ago, I'm curious where he was with them as well. Last year was the year that he was super successful. 2 years ago, it was less often. Of his 23 starts that year, he made 17 of them on 5 or more days rest. This is kind of the way that he's been operating in recent seasons. Is he gets extra rest anytime you can buy it for him, and when he gets the extra rest, honestly, he's just flat out better. OPS plus against him, 74 when he has 5 days of rest, 90 when he has 4 days of rest. The extra rest appears to help Sonny Gray. So it's something worth monitoring. I do think a lot of this goes back to their handling of Sonny Gray and how they want to keep him healthy. They want to maintain him at the top of his game. That is the North Star of everything they do with their pitching plans is what's best for Sonny. That's what's best for our rotation.
But he hasn't been at the top of his game over these last 5 starts. Like he has, I mean, the strikeout stuff has been there great, but the walks are a problem. He's given up a lot of runs.
The fielding independent stuff, and I know nobody wants to hear it, and I get it, guys. But if you look under the hood a little bit, some of the numbers suggest he's been pretty unlucky.
I mean, I can't blame him for that.
He has been hit harder lately. There's no denying that, and his sweeper has not been as good of a pitch for him. It seems like maybe that is something that he's searching for right now. I don't know if that's a grip problem. I don't know if that's a control problem, a command. I have no idea.
He claims he knows.
But, yeah, he says he knows what's going on. He says he knows what he needs to do. My biggest frustration with this move is less about what they're doing with McGreevy getting the spot start tomorrow and more about why didn't we make these kinds of moves earlier, guys? Like, why not call up McGreevy to have the last spot start? If you trust him for this one, what about the last one?
They needed to figure out what they had in their bullpen.
Yeah.
You didn't. You could have decided earlier on Giovanni Gallegos to just, hey, we appreciate everything you've done, Gio. You've been excellent for us. You took the ball every time that we needed you to. Unfortunately, right now, we don't want you to take the ball for us any longer. And that's the way that this business works, man. He's making like $6 million this year. The money is for that. It is for, hey, when things get tight and we want to go a different way, the money makes it difficult for us to walk away. But it is so bad right now, and we need this roster spot so much right now that we need to go our separate ways. They could have done that a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier, 3 weeks earlier to find out what they had down in the minors prior to today's deadline. So that way you're not out here wondering, do we have guys in the minor leagues right now that could potentially help us out? Hey, could Bosiokovic, could he be somebody for us? Could Graceffo in a bullpen role be a helpful piece for us at the big league level? You could have found out some of the answers. Not all the way, but you could have seen some results at a big league level to know what they are, and instead you got none of that. That's just the way the Cardinals operate, unfortunately. For all the good they do, and yesterday was a really good day for them, man. I liked that deal. I liked trading for Erick Fedde. Some of this stuff is just weird the way they operate their roster.
In July has been bad.
Their roster management over the last couple of years has not been pretty in terms of the 40-man, bringing certain guys up, the usage of their bullpen. It has not been good.
It's been weird. He's Alex, this T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we're going to talk to the Chicago White Sox pitching coach, Ethan Katz. He was with Erick Fedde in Chicago this season. What did he see? What unlocked the arsenal for Erick Fedde? And I'm curious from a pitching coach's perspective, what are those early days like when you get a new pitcher to say, hey, here's what you're doing, here's what you did, here's what we think we can get a little bit more out of your arsenal? We'll talk to Ethan Katz about all of that next year on 101 ESPN. The newest St. Louis Cardinals starter is Erick Fedde. This season with the Chicago White Sox in 21 starts has gone 121 innings, 3.1 ERA. His pitching coach is Ethan Katz in Chicago, and Ethan Katz joins us now via the 101 ESPN hotline. The White Sox pitching coach. He also was the pitching coach for Jack Flaherty back in high school as well. Ethan, we appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
So, Ethan, let's talk a little bit about Erick Fedde and what he was for you this season with the White Sox, because Cardinals fans were familiar with his work in Washington and less so, certainly, in the American League. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from him early on and how he was able to have so much success for you guys in the rotation there.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy that has 4 distinct pitches, and he can be able to handle both-handedness. So any lineup that's thrown his way, he's able to combat. And he's a huge strike thrower and big-time competitor. So he was, Crochet is in another world right now, but, you arguably say those two guys were a 1-2 punch.
Ethan, a lot of people look at Baseball Reference and see the numbers of Erick Fedde in Washington and then see the 1 year that he had over in Korea and then, of course, this year with the Chicago White Sox. In conversations that you had with him, did he discuss what changed for him from Washington to the KBO to then getting to Chicago with you?
I think, obviously the pitch mix took a step forward. He made some changes there and added some pitches. Then I think, would also, our conversations and courses throughout the games early on, like he at times would be like, well, usually in the past, those situations are tougher for me where I wasn't able to battle through it. Where now I think he's learned himself a little bit better. The confidence has grown. And, all these tough situations that early on might have been thrown his way, he conquered. So, his past was, it went away and his confidence grew and everything that he experienced over there in the KBO, obviously shows they can transfer here at the big league level.
Ethan, it feels like sometimes for guys, and we've seen this certainly with Kyle Gibson, who added a sweeper and his whole career completely changed. And Sonny Gray is maybe most prominent among those guys. So the Cardinals have a couple of these pitchers that have added the sweeper and everything changes. And that appears to be the pitch that's unlocked everything for Fedde this season. Can you tell us a little bit about when you've been watching him, whether it's in his bullpens or seeing how major league players react to it? How good of a pitch has that sweeper been for Fedde this season?
I mean, it's been really good against righties. For me, I really think his outlier pitch is his cutter because I haven't seen a pitcher anywhere that I've worked with who can throw a cutter up and into a lefty to combat them like he has. He can do that with his eyes closed. And that pitch right there, so if you want to stack lefties against him, he's got an answer for that. Obviously, the sweeper has been great to righties, but for me, the cutter, because he can throw the cutter to righties and lefties, but that pitch right there is kind of his secret sauce that makes everything go.
Ethan, I think the one thing that stuck out to me, too, was just looking at the increase of strikeout numbers for him from kind of what he was in the past up until this season. What's been the emphasis from Erick on the strikeout stuff with his pitches?
I think it's just more, having the ability to shape the ball in a bunch of different ways, understand different sequences that we get into, and also be able to get pitches to really good locations. I think that's kind of what's really helped. His stuff has changed, so he is able to miss bats a little bit more. He's getting into good counts, which is, you got to get in those counts to be able to put those guys away. But just a mix of getting to the ball, great locations, the little extra movement with everything has really helped spike all that.
Ethan Katz is our guest for just another couple of minutes here on 101 ESPN. He's the Chicago White Sox pitching coach. He's been working with Fedde up there in Chicago this season. Ethan, just big picture-wise, I am curious because the Cardinals are now going to have this with Fedde, and I'm sure you've dealt with, even if it was Fedde earlier this season, guys that come in that you didn't have a lot of history with, and you kind of find out, okay, what works for them, what were they in the past, what could maybe we unlock that they didn't have there. Can you take us through from a pitching coach's perspective what the early days are like, especially mid-season, when you get a pitcher that you hadn't previously worked with before?
Yeah, I mean, it's just trying to understand their strengths. What are they doing really well, and trying to really hone in on those. Sometimes it's guys that can be like little reclamation projects, and you kind of have to dig in the past to kind of see, has the mechanics change. Maybe there's a pitch that's off. Maybe there's a pitch that's been added that's now affected other pitches, and maybe we subtract that. So it's different for everybody to try to kind of figure it out. But obviously, first thing you got to do is build the relationship with the player, get to know the player, understand what they've been working on, particularly when you sign a guy, and then kind of hear their reasoning before you kind of just throw everything at them with this is what we're looking at and stuff like that. But sometimes guys are ready and willing to want to take all the information in right away.
Ethan, last question. We'll get you out of here on this. You've got a guy in John Brebbia up there in Chicago that we certainly have a pretty good history with here in St. Louis. What's it like working with him on a day-to-day basis?
He's awesome. He's great. I mean, he's a great personality to have in the locker room. But he's awesome. He's a leader down there in the bullpen, and we're fortunate to have him.
Hey, Ethan, we appreciate the time, man. I know you're unbelievably busy, especially this time of the year. So thanks so much for hopping on with us today, giving us a little bit of time to tell us a little bit about Erick Fedde, the pitcher, the guy that's now going to be a part of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, no problem.
That is Ethan Katz. Appreciate his time joining us here on 101 ESPN. Chicago White Sox pitching coach. Appreciate him hopping on, giving us a little bit of insight into what he has seen this year firsthand from working with Erick Fedde. Alex, first of all, that's a tough spot. Like, we all know the White Sox have had a very difficult season this year.
I can't imagine he's
losing
happy at this time of the year.
His second best pitcher on his staff. And
probably
by the end of the day,
one.
maybe losing his best pitcher on the staff.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine Ethan Katz was super pumped to come on the radio in St. Louis to talk about the guy that he basically helps to fix. And now he's losing him for a team that was already one of the worst in the history of the league and now is getting worse.
Yeah.
Genuinely appreciate him hopping on. There are not many pitching coaches that would have done what he just did. I found it interesting. We've talked a lot about his sweeper. He brought up his cutter as the pitch that for him, he thinks the cutter is the pitch that really kind of has opened things up for Erick Fedde. And he has had the cutter for a pretty long time. It's the usage that has really spiked in a meaningful way. And it just, for whatever reason, has become a better pitch for him this year. Like effectiveness, it is a much better pitch now than it was the last time that we saw him in the big league. So it's really interesting, man, because we think so much about the sweeper, and maybe the cutter's the thing that ultimately makes him more effective righty-lefty.
Well, and he talked about the ability to shape certain pitches and use certain pitches in situations that previously he wasn't able to do. And I mean, I know I've made the comp to Miles Michaelis a lot just in terms of I just don't know, like, are you getting a one-off compared to just him going to Korea and having a good season and then it falls apart? But you heard him mention the word confidence, I think, multiple times talking about Erick Fedde. And I mean, you can't deny that. If he's more confident with pitches that he wasn't prior to working with the Washington Nationals, he used it more in the KBO. I mean, his strikeout stuff was very good in the KBO, which you would expect it to be. And you bring that confidence back to the major leagues. Confidence does a wonderful thing. And if he's using certain pitches more, that shows that he's more confident with those certain pitches. And you just hope he carries that confidence over to another team, because now he's got a different pitching coach. He's got a different catcher working with. Carry that confidence with you, and you just hope it sustains and continues to improve rather than goes backwards.
So you brought up the Michaelis comp a few different times, and it's natural because Michaelis is the other guy that came over. We saw it firsthand here in St. Louis, right? The guy was a legit like Cy Young caliber pitcher that first season that he was here in St. Louis, finished 6th in the Cy Young that year. And he was a big-time innings eater, similar to what Fedde has been this season in Chicago. He led the league in hits allowed that season. Like, opposing hitters were batting .250 against Miles Michaelis in his first season here in St. Louis. They ended up that season striking out about 18% of the time. For context with Fedde on why I do think it is a little different, Fedde's striking out about 22% of the batters that he's seeing so far this season. And if you're looking at the batting average against, it's like 220. Fedde, like, they did the same thing in failing in their first stop and then going overseas, fixing things, and getting back to the big leagues and having success. Like, that part of their stories is the same. What is different is how they went about it and why they became effective when they got back to the big league level. Fedde has become effective, in my opinion, because he has better strikeout stuff, much better command than he did last time, does not have the same home run problem that he had the last time that he was in the big leagues, and has a sweeper that is like one of the better pitches in baseball. Michaelis got better because dude, he just suddenly became one of the best command pitchers in the game. And so like they got to the same place, super effective year one, in just very different ways. And honestly, like, if you told me right now, hey, BK, next year Erick Fedde's going to start 32 games for the Cardinals. He's going to have a 4.0 ERA, which is basically what Michaelis did in year two. I wouldn't be thrilled about it, but at $7.5 million, I think I would actually sign up for that next year.
God, yeah. For $7.5 million when you just paid $11 million for Lance Lynn,
and
I would sign up for that.
That's why, like, even if you get the downside of Michaelis year two, because that was year two for Michaelis, I don't really care. The thing that I don't want them to do is sign him to an extension. Like, don't do that. But just do the Michaelis thing and get all of the good out of it, and then get out before any of the potential real downside hits.
And I don't deny that at all. Like, even if he does have, because that's my concern. You have one good year like Michaelis does. I know the stuff is much better than Miles Michaelis was. Michaelis was the sole pitch to contact type of guy. But my concern is you get the one good year and then teams figure it out and then you get hit on a little bit more. But the more concerning part with Erick Fedde is, and it's only a one extra year, it's $7.5 million. It's not a liability, but we're already putting him into the number 2 pitcher role for this team. And it feels like that's going to be his role again next year, to where Miles Michaelis was the exact same situation. Should have never been a number 2, but he was placed into the number 2 because it was the cheap, cost-controlled type of move. And that's the concern for the Cardinals. If you want to keep getting better, you can't go this route and say he's a number 2 for us.
That's the thing. What they should be doing is, like, last year you had one thing in your rotation, and it was horrific, right? And all of us saw. We watched it firsthand. This year, okay, so you start out the season and Sonny Gray's your 1, Kyle Gibson's your 2. By the end of the year, Sonny Gray's your 1, Fedde's your 2, Gibson's your 3. The hope is by next year, Sonny Gray's your 1, whoever the free agent / trade acquisition is your number 2, or they become your number 1, however you want to look at that. And then Fedde is your 3 and Gibson is your 4. And if that ends up being the way that they operate, like, okay, that is exactly the way you want to see it. You keep improving upon what you previously had. Now, my belief in them actually going out there and doing that is like zero. I do not believe that that's what they're going to do. But that, so far, they've done all of the right things to get to where we are today. And then it becomes, what do they do this offseason? That's what I want to get to next. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, what did the trade for Fedde and the financial ramifications of this trade tell us about how the Cardinals view their financial future? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hunter Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Rangers yesterday 6-3. They are back in action later on tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Max Scherzer will be on the mound for Texas. Lance Lynn gets the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. And today's Major League Baseball trade deadline, 5 o'clock is when the deadline comes to an end. Mark Leiter, the reliever for the Chicago Cubs, has been traded to the New York Yankees. And so far today, that's been the only move. And we'll keep you updated on the trade deadline throughout the day here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. All right, so I read this in Katie Woo's piece earlier today and got visibly angry. So I'm going to go ahead and read this for you guys.
What's visibly angry for BK? Show me. Because am I looking at what Luca's going to be like in 18 years?
No. So Luca, my son, he's 1 year old and he's become a full-blown toddler. This morning had like a tantrum as I left dropping off at daycare. So he now, like, if we take away his toy or we tell him no or something, he goes into a corner. Typically, we're like in the living room. That's where he plays for the most part. We've got this carpet down, and then he goes into the corner next to the couch, puts his head in the middle, and goes.
Oh, that's good. That's good, man. We taught our oldest to go in her room when she gets mad because she's in the kicking stage. We taught her to run into her bedroom when she's mad and pick up her pillow, put it over her face, and go. And so every once in a while, you'll just hear like a screaming goat in another room and be like, what's going on? Oh, Adelaide's angry.
So, yeah, that was me this morning as I read this from Katie Woo.
I wish Kara takes a picture of BK with his head in a couch.
Quote, Mozeliak is operating under parameters from team ownership, which strongly prefers that he not add payroll for this season or next.
Well, they didn't say don't. They just say strongly prefer. That's not don't.
Showing up to work here is strongly preferred.
Okay.
The only one that gets away with not is Tim.
Okay. But if there's a moment that I can't. Well, are you, though?
He's sick.
Yeah, what a shot fired at a man that's sick.
Unbelievable.
For the guy
The dude's got a flu
anytime he
right
goes
now.
on vacation, you can guarantee
He told us on Friday.
he'll be out the next day for being sick.
He told us on Friday he had a scratchy throat and he left the show and went to urgent care.
I did.
Come on.
Who showed up on Friday and who showed up on Monday? This guy. All right.
T-Bone and Ferrario did.
Yeah, and so did Tim.
This is more from Katie Woo.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why the organization was open to moving Edman. With cash coming back to St. Louis, the trade was essentially cost neutral.
Nice.
So they're at like $175 million, which is roughly where they were last year, and is essentially where they've been as the high water mark since like 2019. They've basically stayed stagnant in that regard. Alex, there are legitimate questions in the future as to what their Bally Sports Midwest, the RSN deals, like there's a lot that is up in the air. And so from that perspective, I get it, dude. This has to be a really difficult time to be an owner in baseball when you're trying to figure out what does our financial future look like as a team. I get that. But you are the St. Louis Cardinals. And you did get a lot of money from the Albert Pujols reunion tour, and it was said that that was going to be reinvested into the team. And then last year, the whole thing was like, yeah, payroll's going up. And then payroll, like, technically
It went up.
It's like when I go to the gas station and the day before it was $3.19.9 and the next day it's $3.21.9. Technically, gas did go up, just didn't go up a lot.
This economy. Man.
Alex, when you read this and you saw the Cardinals are essentially telling everybody that will listen, based on reporting from Katie Woo, from Derek Gould, and from John Denton, all of the insiders have had the same thing. There is a mandate from team ownership not to add payroll. What was your reaction?
I mean, I didn't stick my head in a couch and scream. Frustration, yes, but it's kind of lethargic also because I expect it with the Cardinals. I mean, you can tell me that payroll is going to raise, but I understand that there's a loophole that the Cardinals know how to work through, whether it's the Waino and the future money that he's getting or payroll's going to go up, but it's going to go up $2 million. And technically we spent more money. I've become just neutral to the Cardinals. I've become dead inside of the Cardinals when they tell me that, hey, we're going to spend more money to make our team look better on paper, because their actions speak louder than their words, as we've seen. But then also go back to opening day when Mo was on with the opening drive, and he basically told them, well, we're pretty pleased with the roster we put together. Nobody was pleased, and he said, oh, I think the fans are pleased too. Nobody was pleased with the roster you put together because it felt like the bare minimum. Sure, you've gone in the offseason and back-to-back years, and you spent money on Wilson Contreras. You spent money on Sonny Gray. You made trades for Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, but those were all kind of gifted to you. Even Erick Fedde, the Cardinals got cash considerations in this deal also. It's the same thing we talked about with Kaplan in the 11 o'clock hour, where it always feels like the Cardinals are going to go for something, but they're going to go for something that makes sense to them rather than go above and beyond to try and make their team more aggressive. So when I see the phrase of payroll is essentially money in, money out, and we strongly urge you not to add more money beyond this season, it's going to be another Cardinals offseason. Guess what? We're going to lose about $20 million. You've got $20 million to spend this offseason, and that's it. Oh, you've got 5 holes that need to be plugged? Sorry, you're going to have to only spend $4 million on those 5 holes.
See, if they were saying it just for like next year, to where if it was hey, we can increase payroll this year, but you know what? Let's make sure we don't have future money on the books for next year. Because that one makes sense, even though I don't buy the owners crying poor on, oh, look, our RSN's gone. Guys, the owners are going to be fine. The Padres haven't folded as an organization yet, and they don't have a media rights deal, and they still got AJ Preller going crazy playing fantasy GM. If they were going to go with that excuse of, hey, next year's tough, we can't bring in payroll because we don't know what our RSN situation looks like. Okay, it's frustrating. I kind of get it, though. What about this year? You've already got your payment from Bally Sports Midwest. Why can't payroll go up this year? And not even significantly. I'm not telling you to go have a Dodgers type of deadline where you can bring in 10 to 20 millions of dollars to help improve your team. But why is it that it can't be improved for this season on rental guys? Why can't you go out and say, hey, the Cardinals, they probably need 2 bullpen arms today if we're being honest with ourselves. They need a righty. They need a lefty. What are they going to do? They're going to settle for a cost-neutral move by trading Dylan Carlson, it sounds like, and eventually getting rid of Giovanni Gallegos' salary. And they're only going to acquire 1 when they need 2. Why? Because they've got to be cost neutral.
Can I tinfoil this? And this just might be super negative Alex here for you, but why would they not do that this offseason? Because it would feel like the Cardinals are getting fans' hopes up, and then next offseason when they have to cut a lot of costs, then it's getting smacked down to earth. You kind of keep it on the straight line to where it's like, this is who we are.
But like what I'm saying isn't even like raising payroll for like this year and saying like, hey, bring in someone like Fedde, example, at $7.5 million, and payroll's up for $7.5 million, so we got to cut $7.5 million by the time we get to next year. No, just bring in somebody that improves the payroll this year that can help the ball club. A ball club that you claim needs to be in October, that you want to make noise in October, and yet you're operating on this cost neutral, which really hamstrung what John Mozeliak can do. It's a miracle he pulled off that trade yesterday. Absolutely a miracle.
He only deals with bad GMs.
It's a good thing Chris Getz is a rookie at this.
So from the 314, and 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. BK, how much should owners in professional sports teams, specifically baseball teams, make in your opinion? Is it okay for a team to set a budget and ultimately make a profit? Of course. It is, at the end of the day, a business. And sometimes, I can speak for myself, I lose sight of that. Because I look at this and I'm like, hey, it's supposed to be this civic pride thing, right? Like being the owner of the Cardinals is an obligation to this city to make sure that you are a steward of the franchise, because this is about winning championships. And really, it's a business. Like, that's the way that owners treat this stuff. And so, like, should they be able to make a profit? Of course, yes. What I have a hard time with is what T-Bone just said, which is, man, what's actually tangibly changed this year? Like, I would love to sit down with somebody, and they will never tell us. It's just the way that baseball operates. They don't open up their books. This is not like football. This is not like the NBA. There's no revenue sharing. There's no split of the pie. It is very much we're not telling you what you make or what we make. This is what you will get in terms of the salaries. And so it's hard to know what the profit margins are for these teams. Do I think that the Cardinals probably had some money available that they could potentially use at the deadline to be able to acquire players? I would think so. They're still getting 37,000 fans on average through the stands every night. For right now, TV deal has changed zilch. Zero, nada, nothing about, from what we know publicly, their revenue streams for 2024 has actually changed. What has changed is the way they're operating. What has changed is they are telling Mo, according to the reports, do not go add salary to this year's team. So much so that Mo had money thrown into this deal to make it exactly cost neutral, so he's not adding a dime more than what he is sending out via Tommy Edmonds' deal. That is noteworthy. And when you look at pitchers, specifically relievers, that they could add this year at the deadline, that is probably something that we should be looking at over the next 4 hours is, okay, what are their salaries? Because I'm going to go out there on a limb and say they probably are not trading for a $10 million reliever.
Because I brought up Chad Green yesterday with T-Bone, but it's like make $10.5 million this year and next year. You're not getting them.
I don't think that's the type of move that this team is going to be making. I would also say, like, as you look towards next year and just the players that they already have on the books for next season, yes, they are eliminating $26 million via Paul Goldschmidt's deal. Well, they also have a big bump in salary for Sonny Gray next year. He goes from a $10 million player to a $25 million player. The following year, $35 million is owed.
He won't be here by
to
then.
Sonny Gray via salary. As you look at what Gibson is going to get next year, it's $13 million. You look at what Helsley's probably going to get via arbitration. It's probably about $10 million or so. You look at some of their players, like I'm going to guess Lars Nootbaar is going to get more in arbitration than what people are expecting. I'm going to guess the same is probably true for Brendan Donovan. They're not going to break the bank or anything, but a few $1,000,000, sure, that's reasonable. Overall, I would say between pre-arb and arbitration players, you're looking at like $15 to $20 million. They're already committed for like $150 million for next year's team right now before they make a single addition in the offseason. And they need to make additions to get to 26 men on their roster. The reason why I bring all of this up, I mentioned earlier, hey, if Fedde's your number 2 right now and this is a stepping stone season, like I can see how this could be viewed as a success by the end of the year. If that's what the end of the tunnel looks like, well, we're just going to do this again next season, and that's where things become extremely frustrating, dude. The way they're operating right now with financial limitations could limit what they are able to do flexibility-wise and could limit what they're able to add in the offseason to improve this roster. Ultimately, it comes back to this, and this is quite the thing to throw in at the end of the segment. They need to trade Nolan Arenado this offseason, probably, if this is the way they're going to be operating.
Let's take a break. The junk drawer next.
Wow. We dropped the mic.
I mean, here's the thing, though.
I'm serious.
you're not
$32
wrong.
million, and he is not... He's not performing, dude.
Who else are you moving on from? The two guys you're able to move on from realistically are Arenado and Steven Matz. And I don't know how many teams are going to be out there wanting Steven Matz on the roster.
Some of Steven Matz's deal,
or put a better prospect in the package.
And like Nolan, you're going to have to figure out where
he's
is
going
he
one
willing
team,
to go.
the Dodgers.
And then you're probably going to have to eat some of the money on that as well, because he's not a $32 million player, which is what he's owed next season. Absolutely not in 27 and 2026. But can I pay $10 million of that and get $20 million off of my books to potentially go get a big-time starter this offseason or a big-time bat that I need to add? That's the kind of thing this team's going to have to start thinking about. That's what my Royals did growing up, dude. They would, like, cut here to spend here. This is not the way that I envisioned the Cardinals operating in 2025.
And that's the limitations that the ownership is putting on themselves. And I know people's first reaction is to go after John Mozeliak, and Mo has a boss. And this is if when you put limitations on a team, that's how you just stay average, because you're not willing to upgrade. The upgrades have to come internally, which is fine if you have the right pieces that can get you there. And as we have seen and talked a lot about, if you got pitching, but you don't have an ace, you don't have a number 2 in your system right now, you got a lot of what you already have. Your offense has been great, but guess what we're complaining about right now? The offense for this team. And I don't see any other big bats coming through the system that are going to help you next year, with the exception of Jordan Walker. So when you put limitations on a team, financial limitations on a team, and when you have 4 or 5 holes going into the next season, that's how you stay in the same spot that you have been until somebody moves, in terms of you start getting great prospects because your team is bad, or you make big trades that you don't want to make, or you start spending more money.
The reason I find all of this to be interesting is, like, there were all those calls for the Cardinals to be a seller at this year's deadline, right? And I was like, this is ridiculous. They're not going to be a seller, nor should they be a seller. What becomes interesting in the offseason is, like, there is no buyer seller in the offseason. There's just teams that are making moves, right? And I'll be curious, like, what do you do with Ryan Helsley in the offseason? Because right now you're trying to win, so you need to keep him. But if he's making a bunch of money as a reliever, Well, he's a value to most teams across Major League Baseball. At that point, is he still a value to you? Is Nolan Arenado somebody that you can keep around at $32 million? Is Sonny Gray somebody that you keep when he's making real money, when you're potentially cash strapped? Like, these are... It's all just stuff that becomes legitimate questions about the team that I didn't expect to have conversations about because it's the Cardinals.
But this is the circle of insanity of what the Cardinals have been doing. You're just continuing to do it over and over and over until your prospects develop. But then you hit the wall.
Though. This is a new kind of mandate coming down from ownership that I don't believe, as far as I can recall.
Is it though? Because it feels like every year the Cardinals are always around this spot, and because they can't take on more money, whether they say it out loud or not, they're not taking on more money, and then
we have never seen it put out like this. This is a different kind of, if nothing else, a different kind of messaging.
Yeah, this is clearly ownership panicking about the RSN situation.
It seems that way.
And that signals that, like...
And they're not the only team. Minnesota's doing this. Texas did it in the offseason. Like, it would be in line with what some other teams have done. Like, it just feels different because it's the Cardinals.
If that's what it is, and I'd be shocked if it's not the RSN situation, it is best case scenario, okay, payroll kind of stagnates like Texas did. Worst case scenario, they're saying, hey, we probably need to shed some money. And that's where it really becomes a conversation of what you're saying of, okay, so what do you do to improve the team if you're going to stay competitive? Do you look to trade Nolan Arenado? Do you look to trade Ryan Helsley? Do you look to trade Sonny Gray potentially? He's the guy that will see a massive uptick in his salary. That's where it becomes an interesting conversation. That's what
then you're still
will make
retooling.
the offseason fascinating.
Yeah, then you're still retooling. We talked about how you turned over your roster in 2 years. Well, now you're doing it again.
Well, now you become the Rays.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that the Rays do, is they give out early money on deals is really low, and then it starts to get higher and higher. Let me look at the Eflin deal, look at the Tyler Glasnow deal. This is the way that they operate. A Rosarena. Once they start to get expensive, you trade them off. You get their good years while they're cheap, and then you sell them off whenever they get older and expensive. If the Cardinals are going to go to that model, it's going to be a culture shock. I'll tell you that much.
Well, you better start being able to target the right types of players in trades because they have not shown the ability to do that.
It also is a different way to operate, just in general. Like, you don't have stars that stay here for their entire careers if you're operating that way.
Nobody wants to come there because
Rays
they
don't
know.
have those guys.
No.
They can't say, hey, look back at the guys that have been around the team for 15 years, because they don't exist. It's a new team every 3 years.
Yeah.
Right now, they just got rid of Paredes, who has like 3 years of club control remaining, because they're like, this core is over and done with. Let's get to the next one now.
Cardinals
you
fan,
may
that's
view
not
that as
Cardinals.
exciting and different, but it is very different. Yeah. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Juncture is next. let's dive into the junk drawer real quick. Junk drawer today before we get into the plans with Andre Pallante. Alex, earlier today, I stabbed myself. It was an accident.
Sure was.
So I always get on my wife. I don't know. When Kara is cutting anything.
Let's get on my wife. I stabbed myself today. Whoa. Come on, man.
Clarify here. So when Kara's in the kitchen and she's cutting stuff, she will like cut towards her hand, and it drives me nuts, dude. Like,
I do that too, though.
You're such a backseat driver, aren't you?
No, like I try not to say anything.
You're the problem
like,
why people cut themselves, because you distract them while they're cutting.
I try not to say anything, but I'm like, Kara, you are going to cut yourself, and we're gonna have to go to the hospital. Like, can we just not? Can we not do this?
Been there.
So today, my dumb behind, I'm getting ready in the morning. I went on my run, did my workout, showered, whatever, getting ready. And I'm making myself a egg sandwich on a bagel, right? So we get our bagels from Schnucks right down the street from us, and they're not pre-cut. So I have to cut the bagel, right? I've never had this issue before. I make them all the time. I'm cutting through, and for whatever reason today, I'm an idiot, and I'm cutting towards... obviously, my hand, as one does.
And I hope Kara was standing behind you when you did it, and you
she
said,
was in
serves you right.
Thank God.
Are you kidding me? He would turn. See, this is why we don't do it.
This is why we don't do this, Kara. This is it.
That would be his
This is your
response.
fault.
It jammed straight through because it like got stuck, and I'm like, ugh. Jammed straight.
angry at that bagel.
When you got to put the extra oomph in.
Oh,
warning.
dude.
That's what happened when I
It
did my
just like
brisket.
starts squirting out of
Yeah.
my hand. I felt like Alex. The first thing that I thought of was Alex just dropped this case onto his toe and broke his toe. And now our show is just walking around gimpy for the next 3 weeks.
Whoa, I don't like that nickname.
You've got your toe. I've got a hand that's half functioning. It's just not great, man.
Yeah,
You old guys.
Dude, I update on that toe. I went in on Sunday because like it was gnarly. I'm like, this isn't good. And oh yeah, it's broken. And I'm like, how broken is it? They showed me the X-ray. Oh, it's like dislocated. They go, what did you do? I said I dropped like a 25-pound
dropped a safe.
Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, that'll break. The first thing the doctor said to me too was, she goes, you know, you're losing this nail, right? I'm like, yeah, it's black. There's a mass underneath it. Yes, I understand it's going bye-bye. I just need to stop doing things. Apparently, just need to. Sit in a safe space.
You mentioned
probably a
earlier,
white padded room.
I've had quite the 5-day stretch. You mentioned earlier I went to urgent care on Friday.
Yeah.
I had a sore throat. So I go in. This doctor was amazing. I loved the way that I'd never heard anything described.
She walked in and she goes, "Oh, this guy again. Your throat is fine, BK."
So she said, "Yeah, definitely pretty swollen." She said, "What I can do, I could give you a steroid that'll help with inflammation." I said, "That sounds great. What do you need to do?" Blah blah blah. And she's like, "Well, steroids are kind of like tequila. They make everybody feel a little bit better."
Oh,
so that's a great explanation.
I just need to go get tequila then. Do I need the steroid?
Right.
Let's go try the tequila.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of Bet It or Forget It. We'll be updating you throughout the day today if any trades happen, but man, baseball's boring right now. They ain't doing nothing. No news on Jack Flaherty.
457. That'll be when they all go down.
Seems like all the prices on relievers are just completely absurd right now. There was a report earlier from John Denton of MLB.com that the Cardinals would like to get Dylan Floro for their Dylan Carlson.
Dylan for
See
Dylan.
if something comes together with that. But as of right now, nothing doing out
The
there.
most update on Flaherty was it's the Yankees, Dodgers, and Red Sox that are fighting for him.
For
I was
deadline
told
day,
yesterday,
so
for what
two
it's worth,
trades.
the Red Sox believe they're going to get it done for him. But who knows? It's deadline time.
2 trades on deadline day. Come on, baseball.
Hey,
and it's like 2 unknowns.
From
Trevor Rogers and Mark Leiter, which I'm not sure I'm saying his name right.
From 4:30 to 5 o'clock, though, it is going to be a wild, wild west out here.
I hope
doubt
so.
it.
Hopefully the wild, wild Midwest.
No, no high-fiving that. It's fine.
You guys suck.
Coming up next, what's the best plan for the Cardinals with Andre Pallante? Does he stay in the rotation? I don't think that's going to happen. Does he go to the bullpen, or does he head down to AAA? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends at Circa. Alex, people should already be betting over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. I know you gave a futures bet yesterday.
Yeah, go get those Cardinals in the NL Central.
That's certainly a bet you could make. You could do it over on the Circa Sports app in Illinois. College football futures, NFL futures, MVP bets, any of those, you can do that over there. But what I'm doing, Alex, right now, I'm booking my flight out to Las Vegas, getting Circa Millions or Circa Survivor. For Circa Millions, it's $6 million in guaranteed prizes, $1,000 per entry. You pick 5 teams against the spread every single week, and then the winners are guaranteed $6 million in prizes at the end of the season. Survivor's my speed, though. $10 million in guarantees prize pool here. It's $1,000 per entry. Pick one team straight up each and every week. Winners getting $10 million this year. That's with Circa Sports.
Make sure you download the app today. Get in on that excitement for NFL season, or just the excitement of making those single game bets, type money line splits, all on the Circa Sports Illinois app. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So what's the plan with Andre Pallante now that you've added another starter to the mix, and seemingly now that you've added 2 starters to the mix? According to Katie Wu, the Cardinals are calling up Michael McGreevy to be a part of this rotation. He's going to get a spot start tomorrow. They're going to go to a 6-man rotation, push everybody back a day, get that extra day of rest as they're in the midst of, 13 games in 13 days right now that they're playing, T-Bone?
Yeah,
There's 16
and 16 days. So it's a grind, man. This is baseball in 2024. You get one of those stretches, and we got to push the starters back an extra day.
These guys are going to be exhausted. They're going to grind the rest of the way.
And they've got to travel.
Man, there's going to be
In all
back
seriousness,
problems.
they do have to make a move. They've got to make a choice. What do we do with Andre Pallante? Last night, as I was listening to Ollie Marmol's postgame, I felt like he was talking about Andre Pallante in the past tense. Andre Pallante was a big, important piece of what we were able to do. Andre Pallante did stabilize our rotation. Andre Pallante made changes to be able to take advantage of the opportunity he was granted. Like, all of those sorts of things. And I was like, man, this sure sounds like a guy that's about to head to AAA. This sounds like a guy that's going to be a part of the Memphis rotation very soon. And it just so happens that maybe Michael McGreevy's start is potentially available for him down in the AAA rotation staff right now.
Perfect timing.
Alex, what do you think they do? Do you think they put him down in AAA? Does he go to the bullpen? What's your plan with Pallante?
I think they send him down. If you're asking me what the Cardinals will do, I think they're going to send him down to Memphis. I originally was upset about it, but I think it's smart to put him down there because I don't know if I want to lose any more of Andre Pallante as a starter, because to me, next season, he is in my rotation. He's cost controlled. He's looked very good for you, so much so that he's been better than at least 2 of the guys in your rotation. I don't want to put him in the bullpen for the rest of the season as the long man and then in the offseason be like, okay, go back to preparing as a starter. I think I want him to continue to work as a starting pitcher, continue to get those reps, that cycling through of every 5th day, so that he goes into an offseason with the same mentality. And then by next year, you're talking about spring training, he is in your rotation. I just don't like the toying back and forth that we've seen with Matthew Liberatore. And if you put him in the bullpen, it's going to mostly just be the appearances unless an injury pops up. I hate it because he should be in your rotation no matter what. In an ideal world, Lance Lynn is in your bullpen and Andre Pallante is in your rotation. But I'd much rather put him be in Memphis and continue to get his starts the rest of the way than put him into the bullpen.
Yeah, It should be Andre Pallante remains in the rotation and Lance Lynn comes out.
Absolutely.
But we all know what the Cardinals are going to do, so I guess I'm going to operate under that assessment. I think you still should send him down to Memphis, just because I think until probably September. Then once we get to September, I think you can have a new conversation about the role for Andre Pallante. But for the time being, you've now got 5 starters now that you've acquired Erick Fedde. I think you still need somebody to remain stretched out that you trust. They clearly liked what they had seen from Andre Pallante. He wasn't just doing what he did when he first moved into the rotation, which was, hey, like 2 times through the order, and then we're immediately going to the bullpen. He'd pitch effectively. They clearly trusted him. You need somebody to be available as a 6th starter. Whether that means when a rainout comes, you don't have to do the whole bullpen game thing. You can call up Andre Pallante. Or if an injury occurs, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. If an injury does occur, okay, we've got a guy that's ready to come. And the only reason that I said wait until September to then go from where do you want to do with this role, I think right now you look to see who your left-handed reliever is in high leverage. They clearly do not trust JoJo. We've talked about that. They went to John King last night in a spot that would have fit JoJo Romero in a close game. They elect to go to John King, so they don't trust JoJo. I don't really trust John King in that situation. Kyle Leahy, now that he's up, he can be the swing man for the St. Louis Cardinals. Either move Liberatore into that role or see if in the next month JoJo can figure it out to be that top left-handed arm out of the bullpen to be a high-leverage guy. And if not, then if none of those guys take that role, I think then you can start to have a conversation in September of, okay, can Pallante move back to the bullpen and be that guy for the home stretch to try and get us to the playoffs and through the playoffs?
How many left-handed relievers do you need? Because I know Pallante technically throws with his right hand, but for the effectiveness of it, he might as well be listed under left-handed relievers. Like, you're going to get him for a lefty lane. You've got King, you've got Libby, you've got Romero right now on the left side. Matz is coming back. He's on his way, allegedly, back to the big leagues. He's going to start a rehab assignment, I think, starting this week, if I'm not mistaken. He's got like 2 potential rehab opportunities this week. Do you need another one? Like, to me, and this is no shot against Andre Pallante, I'm with you guys. I would have just left him in the rotation, but that's easier said than done when you've got somebody like Lance
5 ERA Lance Lynn.
Yeah, who's a part of your rotation.
So hard.
I don't think there's a spot for him in this bullpen. If you didn't trust King, Libby, or Romero, you could do that, but you do, and you potentially have Steven Matz coming back. It doesn't make sense to have him as a part of the part of the bullpen. The spots that you need to upgrade are the Leahy and Roycroft spots in your bullpen right now. Those are the spots that you really want to get somebody new for, and maybe one of those guys can be Riley O'Brien. He's working his way back on a rehab stint right now. I would like to see them add 1 or 2 more relievers via the trade deadline by 3.5 hours from now, and those are the spots. So I'm with you. I think send him down to AAA, keep him as a starter. If anything happens to anybody, he's ready to go, and you feel good about the depth for the first time in like 3 years. You actually have a legitimate 6th starter that's ready to go for you down in AAA. That's not the worst thing in the world, man. Bobby Miller right now is in AAA for the LA Dodgers. Like, other teams do stuff like this to make sure they're taken care of if and when there is any kind of an injury or spot start, whatever, that you need to get covered at the big league level. Pallante can do that for you, but it requires you to upgrade these spots in the bullpen, because if you don't go out there and get somebody else, well, he's probably better than like Kyle Leahy, for example. He's been better than I expected, honestly, this year, but Pallante's a better pitcher. And so, like, you could just have him in that role, and he just gives you a couple innings whenever you need it.
There's a role for Pallante in the bullpen. Like, they could easily push him there, and I can understand whether it's, hey, he becomes a one-inning guy that, to your point, it serves as a left-handed guy, or he becomes kind of the swing man. And then you can kind of push Liberatore more into high leverage, and now Pallante becomes the 3-inning guy.
It's just rare that you need that guy with this staff, because, like, the whole value of the guys that you have in your rotation is 5+ innings every time.
I agree, but like we've seen this year, there's been some weird situations where they've had to go to like Matthew Liberatore to eat a couple of innings at a time. But the reason that I want to go to AAA first is I want to see if you can get those guys to in those roles and see if they can take it and run with it.
Agreed.
Because I do want him stretched out at least for the next month and a half. And then if you get to September and you're in that home stretch of, hey, we've got to be winning baseball games and we really need somebody to be a high leverage left-handed arm. Okay, now let's talk about Pallante. Because now I should have, whether Steven Matz is either back as a starter or back in the bullpen, I should have him available. that you can bring up Pallante and make your bullpen better. But again, for now, it is let's preserve some depth because, like you said, it's been 3 years since you've really had a sixth. That when I hear Michael Gersh speak, it's not, well, we had guys that were on the big league roster that weren't big leaguers, and then hear the same name, Drew Rahm, as our sixth starter.
The biggest thing is they now have a fifth starter for next year.
Yeah, and that's the
going
most
into the
important
season.
part.
He's cost controlled, super cheap, which is clearly a big important thing for the Cardinals right now.
Well, because Lance Lynn cancels out Sonny Gray's extension, or Kyle Gibson, whomever you want in that position, and so now you're talking about cost controlled for a guy that's canceling out the other player. That's money in, money out.
Neutral. Yep. Lance Lynn, you could say, hey, thanks for everything you did. We now have our 5 starters. It's going to be Sonny next year.
He could be our assistant pitching coach next year.
You've got, going into next season, you got Sonny, Kyle Gibson, Erick Fedde in some order, Miles Mikolas, and Andre Pallante. And maybe they trade from that depth. Maybe, like Miles Mikolas is going to be, I believe, on an expiring deal next year. Maybe he's somebody with an $18 million salary that you decide, hey, let's see what we can get for this. Steven Matz, maybe see what you can get for that. It's possible, but that's pretty much what it looks like going into the offseason. And Pallante, to me, has written his name pretty much in pen for the number 5 starter spot going into next season. Can we talk a little bit about Nolan Arenado before we get to Bet It or Forget It? 314-399-9646 is their comfort service text line if you guys have a scenario.
That is great place in Seattle.
About how he's a leader on this team?
Well, we know that's not true.
What?
Our offseason told us that.
What happened last night?
Well, the Cardinals lost. Their offense didn't come through. They had moments and they couldn't do it.
The play that kind of was the
Nathan Eovaldi looked like a
straw
Cardinal
that broke the camel's back for me. 7th inning, runner on third, 1 out. Roycroft in the game, gets a grounder. It's that high chopper that goes right behind the pitcher's mound. And Nolan tries to do the play that he's done a million times, where he grabs it barehanded and he just misses it, like just whiffs on it. That happens, right? Like we've seen that earlier in the day. He missed on another play that we've seen him make a million different times, where he's ranging to his left, doesn't settle his feet, and just throws on the run, but doesn't get enough mustard on it, and it doesn't get over to first in time. He doesn't throw the guy out. He's frustrated by that one as well. What bothered me about this play, Alex, was his body language after he screwed up. You screwed up. Nobody else. It was you yourself who screwed up. And he quits on it. He quits on the play, and Brendan Donovan has to cover for him. So Brendan Donovan now sprints in to be able to pick up the ball, throw it over to first. Nobody is now covering second base because Donovan is your second baseman in this game. You got him standing next to Nolan Arenado. Mason Wynn's right behind him. Mason Wynn probably should have made the play, by the way. He's got a stronger arm. He's just a better defender at this point in their respective careers, and it was going straight towards him. But Arenado is Arenado. He can make the play typically. He misses it. And then he whines on the field.
Whoa.
He's had some really bad body language lately. There was a moment in a game recently where he didn't run out of play to first. Like, that happens. It's Nolan Arenado.
By the way, Tyler O'Neill got called out by the manager when that same scenario happened.
O'Neill's game is speed. Arenado's very much is not. So
well, it's defense, isn't it?
This is the thing that bothered me.
Yeah.
This is the thing to me. I was like, dude, this cannot happen. Like, Tommy Pham, if he was here yesterday, Tommy Pham would have said something.
I mean, like, it's going to sound like I'm picking on him. Shouldn't Ollie call him out there? I mean, Ollie calls out Tyler O'Neill in that same situation where his speed is dictated by his game.
It's an interesting question. Yeah.
Because
it's not the first time either.
Because if a manager is in charge of that clubhouse and everybody, Brendan Donovan saw that same freaking play, the dude who lost his arm last season because he tried to play through an injury, and you see Nolan Arenado get, for lack of a better word, pissy about a ball that he couldn't make the play on and almost costed that base runner to get to second base in a game that it was still close. Isn't that the first job of the manager to call that player out?
I don't think he was, to be fair to him, I do not believe that he was asked about this in the postgame yesterday. And if you're him, you're probably not just offering up a criticism of Nolan Arenado unprompted in a postgame presser. But it's a fair point.
Didn't he offer up the O'Neill one? I don't remember the whole question. But
I think he was asked about it.
He was asked about it.
About O'Neill rounding third?
Okay. In that one, like when he rounded third and then you saw like the camera cut to home plate, it was like, shouldn't he have been home already?
We all said it.
Yeah, like everybody knew what happened there, and Ollie knew it too.
It was a bad look for Nolan last night, dude. Because you're supposed, like, I get the bad is not playing this year, and we all get that.
That's where I think some of that comes from.
Right?
He gets pissed off,
Dude,
and I think
this is different. Yeah. This is your defense. That can't happen in the field. You can't quit on a defensive play.
Yeah, if you were to put him on truth serum, I think a lot of the anger and frustration has come from his season, because even Goldie's been outspoken about how bad he's been. Arenado is probably feeling the same way. But I also, again, on truth serum, I really wonder if Arenado's pissed off at this team.
For what?
Not doing his part. Like
I get it. I'm just saying, if you were to put him on truth serum.
If I had Arenado on truth serum, that's what he said, I would say, no, dude, the whole reason this team's struggling is you're not performing. You're getting paid $30 million to be really a 7-hole hitter this year. And a guy that now defensively is not doing his job and probably not winning a Gold Glove this year.
And you brought in players via free agency because they were friends of you to bring in more leadership for a team. And you were the one that was outspoken about not being a leader. Like, I'm not asking it because I believe it. I'm asking it if that's what's going on in his head. And that's still not the answer. But, I mean, look at the track record. Colorado, he was pissed off and wanted to be traded away because the team wasn't making aggressive moves. Arenado might be looking more aggressive than what the Cardinals have been. And you get anger. It carries over into your play. Your play carries over into frustration. And you're making misplays.
And somebody on the text line said, how do you guys know that this wasn't a clubhouse conversation between Ollie and Nolan Arenado? Maybe he learned something from calling out O'Neill publicly. I don't think he regrets calling out Tyler O'Neill publicly. I'll say that. I do think he should and probably does treat Nolan Arenado differently. And so it's entirely possible they talked about this after the game last night, and it just wasn't something that played out in a public conversation. Totally fair. I think probably for the best for everybody that's the case. But from my own neutral observation, just watching at home, easy for me to say, right? I'm sitting on my couch eating a bag of potato chips and watching the game.
You don't eat potato chips.
As I watched it, I thought to myself, dude, that is one of the
veggie sticks.
That is one of the worst effort plays that I've seen from Nolan Arenado since he got to St. Louis. He quit. He legitimately quit on a play.
It almost cost the guy to get into runner scoring position because you forced another player to clean up your mistake.
It's just a bad play, man. Yeah. A really bad moment for him, and we all have him. I've certainly had him here on the show, but that was not a good look. All right, coming up next, Bet It or Forget It here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care, taking care of our HVAC system. They've been making people comfortable and taking care of them since 1926. And you've heard me talk a lot about how I've used Classic Air Care since I've owned a home since 2016. My dad has used them. He's been a part of the maintenance program since he's owned his home for such a long time. But the amount of positive reviews that come in on Classic Air Care showcases why you need to use them for all of your HVAC needs. A 4.8 rating, but they have over 2,500 Google reviews, and you can see plenty of these up on Google reviews, like this one from Derek. Took great care of us at Classic Air Care, even showed us a few things to watch out for throughout our time with our HVAC system. Frank was the best, super knowledgeable, and super friendly. I highly recommend Classic Air Care. So be like Derek was, be like the other thousands of people that have used Classic Air Care, taking care of all of your HVAC needs in St. Louis. Contact them today, or you can check them out online, Classic Air Care, classicaircare.com.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we're betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. That delay there was because I was about to tell T-Bone off air that Josh Bell going to the Diamondbacks could be related to Christian Walker, who left last night's game with oblique tightness,
I'd
according
appreciate
to Ken Rosenthal.
you listening to me singing next time. The focus is on air, not off air.
I apologize.
I forget that, too. Christian Walker's a stud. That's a big injury.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up, is because the Diamondbacks are one of the teams this year fighting with right now directly in wild card contention. And if they believe that Josh Bell is a necessary addition because of a Christian Walker injury, that's a really big deal in the National League wild card race right now.
Josh Bell is not Christian Walker.
No.
He's like 5 times.
Before you worry about other
worse.
teams and their injuries, worry about your minus 51 run differential.
Also a fair point. All right, better to forget it, guys. Better to forget it. Dylan Carlson will end up being traded for a reliever that the Cardinals view as a high leverage arm.
Okay, well, there was the loophole. The Cardinals view as a high leverage arm. I'll say bet it.
Does Floro count as a high leverage arm in your opinion?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's a guy that identifies there.
seems to
I don't
be
know. If, I kind of feel like the reason that deal hasn't gotten done is because the Nationals are asking for more than Carlson for Dylan Floro, and I'm wondering if you get less than Dylan Floro for Dylan Carlson. But regardless of who the Cardinals acquire, because of their financial situation, I think they're going to view the player as a high leverage arm no matter what.
Floro for Carlson is a basically cash neutral deal.
Yeah.
I just cash neutral was you got your fantasy app up to where it shows the trade value?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I was going to say
they've been off on everything. I'm done with them.
what? Come on,
their
man.
numbers were completely off this year.
I wonder if the deal
No,
because
don't say that.
because with
totally off.
Denton saying that earlier today, I wonder if the Nationals are saying we got to give us more than Carlson for Dylan Floro.
Well, they should.
Yeah. Not all teams can be like Chris Getz.
No, man. I mean, Dylan Floro is a 33-year-old reliever who's having
I'm
a
not
really
saying
good
they should
season.
get they should get like another prospect.
Yeah,
in that
and
team.
that's what probably the
And,
holdup is.
A back end top 30.
Because the Cardinals are probably thinking for Carlson, we could go out there and just get
mind.
another bullpen
I'm not
arm.
moving Walker.
I pushed back.
Relax.
I had a bad tone, and I apologize.
We should have moved Walker for Fedde, honestly, though.
Dude, that was ridiculous yesterday. D-Row, be better.
I'm betting it, by the way.
I will too. I'll bet it. I think they'll get at least a bullpen arm. What I'm curious is because the Fedde trade was cash neutral, does that mean they have Gallegos' money to play with here at the deadline?
Not yet. Not until somebody else takes it on.
If I'm a team that's like fringe contending, they should trade for Gallegos. Dude, I thought Gallegos looked
Take on the
better in
money?
his.
I would just say release him.
No,
We'll try it later on.
I'm with you. I think the Cardinals and this idea of trading him is a whole bunch
I
of.
think you're still
If I
trying
can
to
get him
sell
for like no money whatsoever, like the Royals they've got some problems in their bullpen.
Yeah, they
He's
do.
probably an upgrade over one of the guys that's currently in there. Like there's teams that you look at the 7th or 8th guy in their pen, dude, you do not want to see them in a game. So you could be better than some of those guys, but I'm not trading for the money.
I think them DFAing him made them lose their leverage if they had any at all.
Yeah, they didn't have any.
So, but
Alex?
Guys, bet it or forget it. There will not be a team in the National League that makes the playoffs with a negative run differential.
no, cool.
So basically you're saying the Cardinals will miss the playoffs because they are not getting into the positive. They're too far below
the Pirates, you never know.
Pirates are still negative. Interesting.
Yeah. It's only -8, though, because
I'm going to say forget it. I'm still believing that the Cardinals are going to get in.
Man, even in the American League, there is not one team. The closest team in the American League of a playoff that's in the negative is the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're a -50.
I told you guys what the history is of teams that are in the negative. Like, it doesn't happen. Teams don't
hockey,
make the playoffs.
Hockey playoffs as well. Yeah. And if the Cardinals do get in, and if they don't fix this problem, they will be the Washington Capitals of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Say it, T-Bone.
I'll forget it because I just don't know if the Cardinals are a playoff team right now. Now, the Walker injury is a big deal in Arizona, but I think when you look at their rotation, I still think Fedde's a guy that can help you get there, but man, it's so hard to pick against like the Padres, who could be making a significant upgrade today, and they don't even have 2 of their guys, and their rotation's been holding up. Arizona's rotation is pretty good when they get everybody back. I'll forget it, but maybe that just means the Cardinals will go on a tear and finish with a nice little +1.
I should have put it better to forget it. A team that's in the negative run differential makes the playoffs because the Pittsburgh Pirates could make it.
I mean, yes, either way for me.
All right, Homer.
I know.
Go ahead, buddy.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Garrett Crochet will be a Dodger by the end of the trade deadline.
I'm just still not buying it, man. I know everybody seems to be saying
was so confident.
It's coming. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't think somebody's going to trade for him, especially given the situation. I don't buy it.
I'm going to buy it. I'm going to bet it. I actually do think because like the Orioles going after The guy from the Marlins tells me that it was too expensive for the Orioles blood. I don't know if anything's ever too expensive for the Dodgers blood. And I wonder if the Padres get Jack Flaherty or the Red Sox get Jack Flaherty and the Dodgers go in and get Eric Crochet last minute.
I do think if anybody's going to call his bluff of, I'm not going to pitch for you, you have to give me a contract extension, it would be the Dodgers.
Did you do that?
Like, okay, cool.
Did you do that voice for a reason?
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were trying to make Crochet sound whiny.
I'm going to forget, too. I don't think he's going to be traded. I think the price is just going to be exorbitant, especially because Chris Getz now knows, I can't miss on this one.
Does he, though?
Well, he should. But the Dodgers are the team. I'm with you. I almost want to see him get traded to the Dodgers just to see how it plays out.
God, that's a
because
rotation.
I heard them talking about it the other day. I don't remember who I heard say it. It might have been on a podcast or something. It's like, imagine being Garrett Crochet and looking at the unicorn that is Shohei Ohtani, one of the best players in Mookie Betts and the most consistent player in baseball, Freddie Freeman, and going, well, hey guys, here's my address. Send me my World Series ring if we get it. He's not going to do that.
All right, Alex, to your point on their run differential.
Yeah.
Let's play a BK game.
I don't want to do this. How many teams made the playoffs in the last 10 years?
No, not in the last 10 years. In the last 120 years.
Jesus. Did we do this already?
How many teams at this point in the season made the playoffs with a run differential of -50 or better? So the Cardinals right now are at -51. So through 106 games, they have a -51 run differential.
I thought we played this game before. It's less than 10.
But it was,
less than 10.
How many teams, where they're at right now, ended up making the playoffs?
4.
I'm going to go.
To be fair, expansion of the playoffs matters. Yeah. That wasn't always the case.
I think Marlins were that. Was Arizona negative last year?
But it's where the Cardinals are, -51. Yeah. It's not just being a negative.
Yeah. Arizona wasn't that bad. I'll go none.
2.
I knew it was less than 10.
The 2012 Baltimore Orioles ended up making it. And the 2017 Minnesota Twins, who won 85 games and lost in the wild card game. The 2012 Baltimore Orioles did actually end up going to the ALDS.
What year, Baltimore?
2012.
Let's look at the 2012 Orioles roster.
That would have been pre-Manny Machado, I believe.
Manny was on that team.
Was he? Man, that guy's old.
J.J. Hardy was the shortstop. Mark Reynolds, friend of the Cardinals. Nick Markakis, Adam Jones, Chris Davis.
Nick Markakis was a fun player.
What was their rotation?
That
was probably Ubaldo Jimenez.
Chen, Hunter, Hamill, Arietta, Gonzalez, Tillman.
Yeah, no wonder why they had a negative. That's Cardinals rotation if I've ever heard it.
Their offense had 2 30-home run hitters in it.
Pre-Chris Davis?
No, Davis was on the team. He was their DH. He's 26.
Stud.
That's a good-looking roster right there.
J.J. Hardy.
They had
leaders.
Oh, former Cardinal.
2, 3, 4, 5. They had 7 of their 9 starters all above 100 OPS.
Season was that year. 19 years old.
How many Cardinals do they have above 100 OPS plus?
This year, I think it's like 3.
Yeah, the Orioles had 7. So when you get into that good category, then we'll talk.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. The Cardinals will break Erick Fedde in less than a month in our pitching philosophy with our pitching philosophy and management.
What's our pitching philosophy that's going to break them?
And how is management going to break a pitcher?
Forget it.
If anybody's going to break him, it's Nolan Arenado's attitude on the field when he doesn't run out of a ground ball, right?
I think Erick Fedde's going to be good. Not great. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to have like a mid-3s ERA, and you're going to leave this saying, I kind of feel about him the way that I felt about Montgomery.
Yeah.
Don't re-sign him long-term, but I like that we got him for a year and a half.
I think you're going to be saying, good move by the Cardinals at the end of it. Not excited, not upset. Good move by the Cardinals.
I think you're going to forget to even trade for him because you're going to go, man, that guy was so at home here.
Yeah. It's like John Lester.
Felt like a Cardinal the whole time.
It's like John Lester.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. The San Diego Padres are the team that people should be fearing in the National League that could come in out of the wild card.
Out of all of the teams that could come out of the wild card, I want to see what the Diamondbacks look like when they're healthy. If they get healthy, I still think that's the team to fear. Rotation, if Christian Walker comes back and now you've added. But I still think the Padres need to make another move for a starting pitcher. If they go get Jack Flaherty, I would totally agree that that's the team to fear because their offense has gotten much better and pitching has been their biggest issue. And some of the guys have been hurt. You get them back. You go get a Jack Flaherty or for how wild A.J. Preller is, Garrett Crochet. I'll say that they're tied for first in teams that should be concerning in the wild card. I still think Pittsburgh might be a concern also.
Something about San Diego just feels off.
Because they're not a team. They're a collection of talent.
sure, maybe that's it. But
So
they
they
got
are.
Tatis is out
They
right
collect
now.
a bunch of fancy names, guys that every casual baseball fan has heard of, and they're like, put them on a field. We'll see how.
So
it
what you're
works.
saying is clubhouse chemistry matters?
Yes.
I just want to mark that
I don't
for
think
this
it's the most
blue
important
season.
thing. I'm telling you that the way that players fit together is super important. And the Padres don't think about that at all. I think it's something that the Yankees messed up at this year's deadline.
T-Bone, mark that for the blue season.
I think in acquiring Jazz Chisholm, they created problems within their clubhouse that they didn't need to create for a player that is vastly
And
overrated.
if they were trying to get Tommy Edman, too. It's like you're adding a whole bunch of chefs in that kitchen.
Yeah, I like the Padres. It's just for whatever reason, don't buy their offense. Like their offense right now is being carried by Jurix and Profar. Manny Machado's not been that great. He's only 5% above league average. That's like kind of Nolan Arenado-esque if Arenado was above league average. So I don't think it's them. I think it is Arizona. Now, if this Walker injury keeps him out for the playoffs, that's a significant loss because they can't fill that. Like they're getting like 70% of that at best with Josh Bell. I think Arizona's the most dangerous team in the wild card picture still.
If I am a team and I'm fearing one of these coming out of the wild card, to me it's the Pirates. I think Alex had it. That pitching, dude. That pitching is no joke. They can't hit.
Yeah, that's my
that
problem.
pitching is
Our boy John
terrifying.
Morosi, the Padres are increasingly likely to acquire starting pitcher Jack Flaherty as the name that's high above this list.
I mean, that would make them more scary. They've got the pitching. There's no doubt about that.
Then it would be Darvish, Flaherty, and Dylan Cease.
So my guess on why is because Darvish is stepping away from the team for a while. He's got some personal stuff going on back home. So it's basically just Cease is what they've got at the top of their rotation. And if you go out there and get Flaherty, it would be Cease and Flaherty, and we'll see what happens with Musgrove.
And they're running into an innings limit with some of their arms. Like Waldron, he's already at his innings. Michael King at his innings. That's why they really
need a starter
somebody
desperately. Because like you think the Cardinals are light, they have Cease, which is something different than what the Cardinals have. Their depth is so much worse than what the Cardinals have internally. All right, coming up next, we'll give you all the latest updates on what's taking place across the league with Major League Baseball and our Major League Baseball trade deadline.
Roundup!
It didn't deserve that kind of excitement. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Whoa.
Hey, it's BK, and it is time to unlock your inner champion. That may mean something different for each and every one of you. For some of you, it might mean meeting your weight loss goals for this year. You've been trying, and it's time to get a little bit of help. They can help you out with that over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. They've got 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. VictoryMen'sHealth.com is where you can go to learn a little bit more about how they can unlock your inner champion. For me, what that looked like was getting my vitamins at the right track. I was way low on my vitamin B12. I was low on vitamin D. I was low on my iron levels as well. So they got me hooked up with some supplements that are helping me out. I feel better in the morning now. I've got more energy. My workouts are going better because Victory Men's Health was able to unlock my inner champion. They can do the same for you, whether that's low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals, micronutrient levels. They can check out all of that for you at Victory Men's Health. Again, 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can find them today at VictoryMen'sHealth.com.
Terry Ferguson, your Day Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight, 6:45 when they take on the Texas Rangers. Max Scherzer will get the start for Texas, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. And some other news to pass along as well from our Cardinals insider, Katie, earlier today. The Cardinals plan to call up their 2021 first-round pick, Michael McGreevy, to make a spot start tomorrow against the Texas Rangers. And today is Major League Baseball trade deadline. 5 o'clock is when trades must be submitted to the MLB office, and we'll keep you updated about the MLB trade deadline throughout the day here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
That was a good one. Oh, we forgot our hats, Alex.
No, hat.
Here.
Singular.
Here's yours.
You want me today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's mine.
Well, let me take my girl dad hat
All right.
off. This is gonna make YouTube chat. The graveyard's gonna be really upset.
I didn't know Alex was able to take that one
Yeah,
off.
it's like connected to my head.
All right, it's time for our Major League Baseball trade deadline roundup here on BK and Ferrario. There's not a lot to round up, to be totally candid with all of you.
What are you talking about?
I'm hoping a lot more comes as we go along later on today. According to Mark Feinstein, we do have one update for you guys here on the Cardinals and their pursuit of a trade for Dylan Carlson. According to Feinstein, the Nationals and the Angels appear to be the two teams most interested in Dylan Carlson. Cardinals are, quote, expected to deal him today, but his destination is still unclear. Both teams have some really interesting bullpen arms, so it would make sense to go to one of those two. One guy that makes some sense for the Cardinals because he's cheap and old, Hunter Strickland. He's had a pretty good season this year for the Angels. He's got a 3.1 ERA on the year. Nothing about that looks fake based on the underlying numbers. Doesn't get a lot of swing and miss.
They have Guillermo Zuniga on their roster.
Is he still there?
Well, he's on the minors, but what's he doing in the minors right now? That's who you're going to get.
Matt Moore's there. He's not having a very good season, though. It looks like it's pretty much over for him. Luis Garcia is a guy that previously we had some experience with here in St. Louis. He makes some sense for the Cardinals as well. So they've got some options for you in LA, and we talked about kind of what the Nationals have to offer. They've got a bunch of bullpen arms. We just saw those guys.
Yeah,
I think it's actually Dylan Carlson for Mike Trout. We're all underplaying this. Center fielder for center fielder. Two guys that need a change of scenery. Yeah, I'll take it.
Would you guys be willing to trade Dylan Carlson for just like a solid, capable rental bullpen arm at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the best you're going to get for Dylan Carlson.
I'm actually shocked if you can get him just by himself.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, too.
I brought this up yesterday to Alex. I think at this point, the asset's become such a watered-down asset because he's struggled for multiple years now at the big league level. He almost feels like it's almost, unless you include prospects with him, you can't get a reliever because Tyler O'Neill, they got barely a 40-man guy. Nick Robertson,
I didn't even remember who they got.
Year. That's disappointing. It is what it is, though. All right, so the other big move, quote-unquote, that's been made today is the Orioles, who have acquired left-handed pitcher Trevor Rogers. This guy's been in trade rumors for like 5 years, Alex. He's fine. He's like a number 4 probably on a good team. I'm a little surprised this is the route that the Orioles decided to go here, and it seems like they had to give up quite a bit. Connor Norby is in the deal, and then Kyle Stowers is also in the deal, a power bat down in the minor leagues. They both have like some legit prospect pedigree. Now, the Orioles have a surplus of position players. They can deal from that. They clearly decided that it was worth it for Trevor Rogers. I think it speaks to the kind of return that these teams are getting on starting pitching. And the more guys that get traded, including Kikuchi, now Trevor Rogers, the more the deal that Mo was able to pull off for Erick Fedde looks better and better and better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm surprised more people aren't giving the Cardinals more credit for what they pulled off because the price is just absurd for a lot of these starting pitchers. And most of these are rentals that you're talking about that don't really slot into what you needed. And you got your guy that matched exactly what you needed, that provided an upgrade to your team, and you traded a guy that missed a year, or basically has not played this season, and who knows when he's going to come back and what role he's going to have. So watching the prices for starting pitchers, I mean, there's still only a couple of left that are realistically going to get traded, and I got to imagine that those prices are even higher and more astronomical than what the others have been. That's still a steal for the Cardinals to pull that deal off.
Yeah, it really does look like a steal because of like you said, the price that's gone for Kikuchi. He got way more than what I was expecting in return. Even Trevor Rogers was more than I was expecting. And like you said, he's like a 4 at best. I'm surprised that that's what it's costing, and that's going to show you what the Flaherty market's going to look like. Detroit. The reason you probably haven't seen Jack Flaherty's dealt yet, and a lot of pitching dealt yet, the asking price is so high. All these teams won Jack Flaherty's market. Detroit saw what Houston gave up for Kikuchi, so they're going to want something similar. And a lot of teams are saying, well, that was just the Astros being the Astros, overpaying like crazy. Too bad. That's not what the market is, and that's why the relief market's frozen. Why? Because what are teams waiting on? They're waiting to see what Tanner Scott from Miami gets. It's why everything is frozen right now at the deadline.
Finnegan's the other one, too.
Yeah,
Finnegan's, when you see that domino drop.
Glad you mentioned Tanner Scott. According to Craig Mish, who works down in South Florida, Marlins relief pitcher Tanner Scott is expected to be moved before the 6 o'clock deadline Eastern time, 5 o'clock Central time. And at this point, it looks like they're also looking at potential deals for Brian De La Cruz. So the outfielder also expected to go from Miami. Where do you guys think Tanner Scott ends up going? He's a big-time piece, man. That's a left-handed option that top 3 to 5 closer in the game right now. That's a big piece, and he's going to get a massive return for wherever he ends up.
Yeah, I really don't know. It feels...
I think Yankee. They've been looking for swing and miss stuff.
Makes
they
sense.
added Reed Detmeyers already today.
Shut down stuff for your bullpen.
They added Jazz Chisholm to improve their offense. Now I think it is okay. They're looking for one more, and they're going to be one. I think they either end up with him or Finnegan from Washington.
You know who's been really quiet this deadline? The Guardians. Especially for the position that they're in. Like, they are the best team right now in the American League, and
I'm surprised they haven't added a pitching, but there's just not that many pitchers that have been traded, dude.
That's kind of what I originally thought, but I don't know if Cleveland is the type of team that pays the price for that high of an arm. Like, they're going low-hanging fruit.
It's not, and like, think about the number of starters that have been dealt. It's like, what, 5?
Yeah.
There's just, like, maybe they end up getting in for Cal Quantrill. That's the kind of, I know he's there previously. That's the kind of move I could see them making. They don't typically make big moves like this. So I don't know.
Something to keep an eye on, because we just talked about the the LA Angels. They have just acquired a reliever in a deal from the San Francisco Giants, who was DFA'd.
Yeah,
so probably adding a bullpen arm for someone that they're about to subtract.
And Joel Sherman just tweeted this out. Cardinals, quote, would like to use Dylan Carlson to add another
and
reliever.
Feinstein tweeted out that logically Cardinals could get Dylan Flora or Luis Garcia for Dylan Carlson.
What would you prefer?
I'd go Luis Garcia.
I think I would too, because I think he's got better swing and miss this year than what
8
Flora
Ks
does.
per 9, I think is what he's at.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
Flora's at 6. He typically is a guy that sits at 9. Yeah, for some reason his strikeout per 9 is down. So I would probably say Luis Garcia.
I mean, I'm fine with either of them because you're using them in a 7th inning
Dude,
role.
if you get that for Dylan Carlson, you got to be pretty happy.
Yeah.
All things
Are
considered.
either of those guys controllable beyond this year?
No,
They're both rentals?
Garcia is making now. Where it gets interesting with Garcia, and it'll probably come down to what we talked about, where the Cardinals may have to throw in a prospect to eat some money. He's making 4.2. He's making a little bit more than Carlson.
Okay.
Floro and Carlson's 1 for 1.
$2.2 million in terms of the price. Fielding independent for Floro this year is a 2.6. If you're looking at the same number for Luis Garcia, it's 3.7. And that's what his ERA is, 3.7 ERA for Luis Garcia on the season, about 8 Ks per 9. He's got the big-time velo. Hey, man, if they get one of those two guys for Dylan Carlson, I'm feeling pretty good. And honestly, both of them are really nice additions to this bullpen. They help you. They could fit into that 7th and 8th inning mix, and you feel pretty good about it. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll hit the rewind next year on 101 ESPN.
AMCO presents Bet You Didn't Know.
Bet you didn't know that your car's transmission is made up of 800 pieces. Also, bet you didn't know that AMCO's fixed over 40 million transmissions, and that AMCO offers a nationwide warranty.
AMCO offers easy payment plan options for most any credit situation, so you can fix it fast and pay it off slow at AMCO.
That's AMCO, AA, MCO.
Rawlings, the #1 baseball brand worldwide and the glove of choice for Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Wilson Contreras, has officially opened the Rawlings Experience here in St. Louis, home since 1887, featuring the iconic brand's full line of gloves, bats, protective gear, apparel, and more. Experience the past, present, and future of gloves in the Rawlings Glove Vault. Design your own custom glove like the pros and take cuts in the Rawlings Hit Lab. Visit the brand new Rawlings Experience at Westport Plaza. Everything baseball and softball, and considered one of the finest in the field.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
My wife is gearing up for the delivering a baby.
It's all coming up for the I-55 Ironman. Don't miss out on this extravaganza taking place Friday and Saturday at the Federated Auto Parts Raceway at I-55 in Peevely, Missouri. Get all the details right now at 101ESPN.com.
Do you know where Peevely, Missouri is?
South. Just go south as far as you can.
You are absolutely correct, sir.
I put that bad boy in my GPS. I say, take me to where I need to go.
It's my neck of the woods. That's Jefferson County. That is God's country.
Alex, final thing for today. What do you think that the Cardinals will do? We've got 3 more hours prior to the deadline. The Fast Lane will have you guys taken care of right up until and after the deadline this year at 5 o'clock. I'm going to be getting down at Busch Stadium, getting comments from Mo, Ollie, everybody down at Busch Stadium, getting comments from Mo, Ollie, everybody that's available to us today. What do you think they do prior to today's deadline?
Bullpen arm, one bullpen arm, and it sounds like it's a bidding war for Dylan Carlson right now between the Angels and Nationals, and it's either Luis Garcia or it's Dylan Floro from the Nationals. What I'm curious about is what else is going in the package, because if it was just straight up for Dylan Carlson, I think the deal would have been done by now. I'm wondering what else the Cardinals have to put into it.
What else can they give to you? You know,
more cash. Mo's going to walk away with 2 cash considerations and only giving up players that have not been good for the Cardinals.
He's going to walk into DeWitt's office with that check and
it's
going to be great.
Give it that little snap.
I just secured another 3-year extension with this one, Billy
Cost
D.
neutral, baby.
Yeah, I do. It's going to be a bullpen arm, and it's just going to be a right-handed arm, it sounds like. And I think after that, the Cardinals had a successful offseason or trade deadline, and now it comes down to what do you do the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think by the end of the day, you're going to see them acquire one of Garcia or Floro, and it's probably going to call. If it's Floro, I think it's just Carlson. I think it's going to be cash neutral. Maybe throw in like a just throw in prospect. If it's for Garcia, I could see where it's Carlson and like a fringe top 30 prospect for the Cardinals.
I think that the Cardinals end up getting Luis Garcia. It's a return. Like, this is what they do. And I actually think it would be a really good move. It's unfortunate that we got to this place that they have to give up on Dylan Carlson, and all you're getting is a rental reliever. But if you told me at the beginning of the week, I guess beginning of last week, hey, the Cardinals are going to give up Tommy Edman, Dylan Carlson, and a guy nobody in this listening audience has ever heard of that is currently participating in the Dominican Summer League. And in return, they're going to get Erick Fedde, Tommy Pham, and Luis Garcia. been thrilled.
It's a hell of an
really good,
trade deadline.
really good trade deadline for Mo. We will keep you
It's like Roy
updated
Croft.
throughout the rest of the afternoon on the Fast Lane. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
From the opening drive, the balloon party, BK and Ferrario, to the Fast Lane and more. If you missed anything